Singahlala phansi. Honorable members, I would like to announce in terms of Rule 233 that the Council has received a petition from Mr. Dumzela on behalf of the disabled ex-mine workers calling for an amendment of the Compensation for Occupational Injuries and Diseases Act. Therefore, the petition will then be referred to the necessary committee for processing. Does any member wish to give a notice of a motion? Honorable Pakis.
Honorable Chair, I hereby give a notice that in the next sitting of the Council, I shall move that the Council knows reports that the Chief Whip of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Floyd Chivambo, faces another contempt of Parliament charge for his completely appalling, sordid conduct when he showed the Deputy President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable Cyril Ramaphosa, a middle finger during a sitting of the National Assembly on 17 September. Further note that this will be in addition to the contempt of Parliament charges he faces for disrupting the proceedings of the National Assembly on 21 August, when he and his troops of 19 ill-disciplined members of the EFF disrupted President Jacob Zuma from answering questions in the National Assembly. Acknowledges that this is not only a misconduct, but an insult to the Deputy President and South Africans. Take this opportunity to welcome the charges of Honorable Chivambo for displaying one of the most distasteful and repulsive conduct ever displayed by a member of Parliament in 20 years of our democratic country. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do I take it that that was the only notice? Okay. Motions without notices? Yo. Okay. I didn't see the Chief Whip. Okay, Honorable Chief Whip, and then just indicate members as I take down your names. Honorable Member, what's your name? Kronstadt. Klutze. Okay. Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chair. I hereby move without notice that the Council, one, notes with utmost pride and humility that the Deputy Chairperson of the Council, Honorable Mr. Rasiriti Tau, has been elected President of the International Peace and Security Committee of the Interparliamentary Union, IPU, at the Union's assembly held in Geneva last month. 2, further note that Honorable Tau's term as President of the committee ends in October 2018 and will chair the next meeting of the committee during the 132nd IPU Assembly in March 2016 in Vietnam. And lastly, take this opportunity to congratulate the Deputy Chairperson for flying our national flag on the shoulders of the world, and we wish him well in his new position. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I take it that there's no objection to the motion. Therefore, the motion shall be dealt with in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Suka.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. I hereby move without notice that the Council knows that 3 people appeared in Bizana Magistrates Court yesterday, 3rd November, in connection with the burning of the ANC stalwart Oliver Tambo statue at the heritage site in Kantolo village in the Eastern Cape. 2 further notes that the 3 were arrested on the 24th of October after a task team appointed by the Eastern Cape Provincial Commissioner to investigate the burning of the statue, which formed part of a heritage site, was burnt on the 22nd of October 2014. Further notes that the statue was erected as part of the honor of O.R. Tambo, who was born in Pizana and went on to become one of the founding members of the African National Congress Youth League in 1944 and became its first national secretary and later the president of the African National Congress, president before his death in April 1993. And lastly, takes this opportunity to reiterate its disgust in the vandalism and burning of the O.R. Tambo heritage site in Kantolo village. I thank you, Chairperson.
Is there any objection to the motion? Therefore, the motion shall be dealt with in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Klute. Klute.
It's Knutse. Knutse.
Klute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Honourable Deputy Chair, I wish to move a motion without notice. This House notes that no regional rural road maintenance contracts have been awarded for the province of the Eastern Cape in the 2014-15 financial year. Since April 2014, no maintenance work could be carried out in large parts of the Eastern Cape due to contracts not being awarded because of problems in the procurement process. Roads are the lifeblood of the Eastern Cape. The province relies heavily on tourism and agriculture, especially in the citrus industry, which is the second largest contributor to the economy of the Eastern Cape. Well-maintained roads are essential for survival of these industries. The DA calls on the Minister of Transport to A, award these contracts as a matter of urgency, and B, to put contingency plans in place for urgent maintenance works until such time as the contracts have been awarded. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In the light of an objection, therefore, the motion shall be treated as a notice. Honorable Khai.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. On behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes and welcome the Western Cape farming sector engagement initiative by the national government on Saturday, 1st November in Paarl. Further notes the engagement which was chaired by the Deputy President, Cyril Ramaphosa, and attended by the Ministers Godan, Zokwana, Masuta, Deputy Minister Kota, and MEC for Human Settlement in the Western Cape, which seeks to address persisting problems of farm evictions, working conditions, and the previous initiative that sought to address farm workers' problems. Takes this opportunity to note and welcome the outcome of the initiative of calling for the moratorium on evictions of farm workers by farmers, and express its belief that the outcome of this engagement will assist in expediting the process of finding lasting solutions and improving conditions in farming communities. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In the absence of any objection, then the motion shall be treated within terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Mikalakis.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Chairperson. Honourable Deputy Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that according to Stats SA's latest quarterly labour force survey, the Free State retains its place as the province with the highest unemployment rate in South Africa. Unemployment in this ANC-run province currently stands at 34.5%, 40.9% according to the expanded definition. Thirdly, that the Free State's poor performance is not surprising, since basic services such as water is a luxury and ANC-run municipalities are unable to pay their Eskom bills to keep the lights on, hardly an attraction for prospective investment. Fourthly, notes that the high unemployment rate in the province is a direct result of Premier S. Magashule's provincial government's ill performance, and the ANC is continuing to fail the poor in this manner. Finally, that Council condemns the poor performance of the ANC provincial government in the Free State and calls upon Premier Ace Magashule to for once acknowledge that this province's poor performance is directly related to his cabinet's failure to run a clean and efficient government. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In the light of an objection, therefore, the motion shall be treated as a notice. Honorable DPA.
Honourable Chairperson, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes that the Public Protector has recommended that the City of Cape Town reconsider the terms of a beach cleaning tender that has been in dispute since 2012. Notes that the City has been given 7 days after meeting Beach South Africa to report on the outcomes of the Public Protector. Further notes that the Public Protector, in her preliminary conclusions forwarded to the City, said that the Council officials did not properly consider the complainant's representations. Therefore, implores the City of Cape Town to implement the recommendations of the Public Protector instead of continuing to further waste more than 2 million rand of the taxpayers' money on legal action. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? Is there an objection? Okay. In the light of an objection, therefore, the motion shall be treated as a notice. Honorable Zwane.
Thank you, Chairperson. I hereby move without notice that one, Council notes that Ezinoleni local municipality has won a prize of 1 million rand for being the best performing small municipality in KwaZulu-Natal province. Two, that Council further notes that Ezinoleni local municipality, which is under the leadership of the ANC, has been proven to be amongst the municipalities with most sound and prudent financial management systems and processes that are underpinned by effective governance and the delivery of quality services to our people. Three, Council acknowledges that this award is an encouragement, affirmation, and accolade that sends a message to other smaller municipalities that being a small, rural, and financially constrained municipality that has got no tax or revenue base does not imply mediocrity. And four, finally, Council takes this opportunity to congratulate the Ezinoleni local municipality, the leadership and management of the municipality, the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs in KwaZulu-Natal province for this outstanding accolade and their decisive and visionary leadership. I'll so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? Therefore, the motion shall be agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Van Lingen. Oh, then followed by Honorable Dikhal.
Thank you, Chairperson. On behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that the Council knows that the credit regulations adopted by Parliament and gazetted on 26 February 2014 were meant to remove adverse credit information from the credit record of consumers. Therefore, welcomes the removal of 3.18 million consumers from the adverse credit list and therefore allowing them to be economically active. Further notes that these regulations were an initiative of the NCOP to assist the low income from participating in the economy of the country and improving their living conditions. Therefore, want to commend the South African government for implementing these regulations that will allow more than 3 million people to participate in the economy of the country and assist them in improving their living conditions. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In actual fact, I thought that motion is going to receive an applause because it benefits all our constituents in any case. Therefore, the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Prince? Helen? Oh, Honorable Singh? Oh, you're off. Honorable Stock?
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I hereby move on behalf of the ANC without notice that the House notes the decision of the Department of Education in the Northern Cape Province that all grade 12 learners of the affected 8 high schools in Jomorolong district be deregistered and re-registered as part-time learners so that they are afforded the opportunity to prepare and write supplementary exams in February next year. Further notes that all grade R to 11 learners will be allowed to redo their current grades in 2015, as they have been unable to complete a full academic year in terms of the schooling curriculum. I further take this opportunity to welcome the intervention of the Department of Education in the Northern Cape Province under the ANC-led government to ensure that despite the enormous amount of time that these learners have lost, they are given an opportunity to rejoin their peers in furthering their education and careers next year, and further extend well wishes to all the affected learners in the Northern Cape Province, especially the grade 12 learners who will be embarking on a period of extensive preparation to ensure that they are ready to write supplementary exams and pursue their studies and careers. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In light of there not being any objection, therefore the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Manopole.
I hereby give motion without notice that the House notes that Transnet and in partnership that the House knows that Transnet, in partnership with Solplaiki Municipality in the Northern Cape, has officially launched the reconstructed Fieldview Campus Dam section in Manganese Export Rail Line. That the reopening of the line is critical for the province's economic development ambitions. That the 90 million project also include construction and refurbishment of the wastewater treatment system for the Kimberley area and will create 130,000 jobs. Further notes that the government also allocated 26.6 billion investment to increase the capacity of the manganese line that runs from Northern Cape iron ore mines to port in Elizabeth, Eastern Cape. We welcome this initiative and in contribution for the more prosperous Northern Cape and East people. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In the absence of any objection, therefore the motion shall be agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. I gave you an opportunity, you didn't take it. Honorable, seeing I called your name, you didn't take the opportunity. And we are pressed with time. Let us be awake, all of
Honorable
us.
Chairperson, you called me on by the wrong surname. That's why I couldn't stand up, because you called me by other surname.
Is it so?
Yes, you didn't
Okay.
call me by Councillor Smith, Honorable Smith.
Okay. No,
Yes.
then I gave
So
you a
the-
different name.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
So can I please present my motion?
Yes, you may proceed.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Honourable Chairperson, on behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that this Council takes note that the SAPS yesterday cooperated with 30 ANC councillors to perform a coup d'etat at the local government of Mogalakwena. The SAPS manhandled various councillors and officials, including the municipal manager and speaker of the council, and threw them out and in the back of their vans. This all happened under the supervision of General Mpalachi, who at my request refused to identify himself and could not provide any documentation to substantiate the SAPS's actions. That municipal documents were removed from the premises of the council in the back of a police van. That today the SAPS are refusing entry to the municipal premises to all officials, opposition councillors and 22 other ANC councillors. That this is a clear indication of what the ANC is capable of when they are out of options to retain control of a government. The DA insists on an urgent probe into this matter and that all found in breach of the law be brought to book. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? In the light of an objection, therefore, the motion shall be treated as a notice. Honorable Groenewald.
Thank you, Honourable Deputy Chairperson. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, I hereby wish to move a motion without notice that the Council notes former Springbok and Western Province Centre Tinus Lanier, who are suffering from motor neuron disease, MND, passed away at the age of 45 years on Monday morning. Lanier was diagnosed with MND in 2013. It is the same disease former Springbok scrum half Joos van der Westhuizen suffer from. The former centre played 9 tour games for the Springboks between 1993 and 1994. We pay tribute to the former Springbok and Western Province Centre. May his soul rest in peace. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In the absence of any, therefore, the motion shall be agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honourable members, may I bring it to your attention? You have been quite active today insofar as motions are concerned. The list that I am seated with here, against the 5 minutes that were left, may you please try and utilize a minute in order to take everybody, because I don't want to deny anybody an opportunity to present their motions. Are we agreed on that? Fine. If agreed to, then Honourable Singh.
Thank you, Deputy Chairperson. On behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that this Council notes that the Western Cape Court has ordered the broadcasting regulator, Independent Communication Authority of South Africa, ICASA, to review its decision to license 3 PON-paid channels. Further notes that the judgment follows after ICASA's granting 3 broadcasting licenses to On Digital Media, operating as Top TV and later Star TV, on April 23rd last year to broadcast Playboy TV, Desire TV, and Brazil. Takes this opportunity to welcome the judgment by Judge Lee Brozek and calls on the Minister of Communications to ensure that ICASA improves the internal assessment processes in the granting of broadcasting rights and that it creates proper internal assessment process to consider and views of South Africans when granting licenses. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? Therefore, the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honourable Mquthu.
I hereby move without notice that the Council notes that outstanding performance of South African athletes during the final Swimming World Cup series in Singapore. Further notes that South Africa's Olympics gold medalist, Chad Liklo, was among the top winners at the series, winning gold in the 100 meters butterfly on the final day, to add to his 2 gold medals in the 50 meters and 200 meters butterfly events on Saturday, and came close to world records in all the races and bringing total tally of gold medals in the series of 27, and takes this opportunity to congratulate Liklo and his fellow South African athletes for their outstanding performance. I so move, Honourable Deputy Chair.
Thank you. Is there any objection to the motion? Therefore, the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honourable Groenewald. Okay. Yeah. No, that's fine.
You're calling on me.
Oh, you read your motion. I didn't mark you off here. Oh, okay, okay. I forgot to mark you off here. Honourable Timui. No afterthought. I'm no longer taking other hands now.
Honourable Chair, in the name of the ANC of Oliver Tambo, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes the assurance given by the South African Police Service that Zanogu Mbata, who was arrested last week and charged with murder for the brutal and senseless killing of Bafana and the Orlando Pirates goalkeeper Senzo Moyiwa. 2, takes this opportunity to congratulate the investigating officers for working tirelessly to ensure that the killers of Meiwa are brought to book and face the full might of the law. Finally, takes the opportunity to once more appeal to anyone with information to assist the police to ensure that everyone who was involved in this cold-hearted murder of Meiwa are brought to book for taking one of the country's best goalkeeper in the recent years. I so move, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? Therefore, the motion shall be agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Mutara.
Thank you, Deputy Chair. I hereby move without notice that the Council notes the 36th Plenary Assembly session of the SADC-PF, which was held in Victoria Falls in Zimbabwe from the 25th of October to the 3rd of November 2014 under the theme SADC Regional Parliament, the future is now. Further notes and congratulates the Speaker of the National Assembly of Tanzania, Honorable N. Simamba Makinda, who was elected unopposed as the new President of the SADC Parliamentary Forum for the period 2014 to 16, and takes this opportunity to congratulate the 36th Plenary Assembly of the SADC-PF for a very successful meeting, and congratulates the South African delegation under the leadership of the Speaker of the National Assembly for representing our national parliament and the people of South Africa with profound distinction. I so move.
Is there any objection to the motion? Honorable Mtimonyi? No, I heard you. Honorable Mamburu? Okay. Quickly.
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair. I hereby move without notice that the Council, 1, knows that the Department of Social Development in the Western Cape has launched an investigation into allegations of elder abuse at the unregistered Serendipity Old Age Home in Cape Town. 2, further knows that allegations surface that the elderly residents at the home are neglected, drugged to keep them quiet, and fed food past the expiry date. And lastly, 3, takes this opportunity to welcome the investigation and the decision to establish a dedicated inspectorate that would look at the treatment of older persons in the province. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In the absence of any objection, then the motion shall be agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable Tlameni, you are the last in terms of my list. You are the last.
No. Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair. On behalf of the African National Congress, I hereby move without notice that the Council notes with utter contempt reports that a 6-year-old girl has been sitting at home for the past 2 months after she was expelled from the Walter Sisulu Primary School because her mother could not afford to pay the school fees. Further notes that the Department of Education in Gauteng has moved with utmost speed to investigate the complete and utter violation of the right of a child who's being denied access to education, and the only opportunity that will one day assist the family to break the cycle of generational poverty that faces many of our people. Takes this opportunity to condemn in the harshest possible terms the expulsion of a 6-year-old and calls on the MEC for Education in Gauteng to take action against anyone who is found to have violated the constitutional right of the innocent girl and transgress the policies and commitment of this government to ensure that poor children have access to education. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? In the light of there not being any objection, therefore the motion shall be agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Or have you given up? Thank you very much, because I was persuaded. Ow. Baba. Okay. May I give you then the benefit as the last motion? The very last now. No. How do you know? How do you know that your hand was up before his? No. It would have been better if you could see better than me. But I can see what has been happening before me. And I'm doing exactly what I can see. Proceed, Honorable Member.
I hereby move without notice that the Council note that yesterday marked the beginning of the 2014 National Disability Rights Awareness Month, which is celebrated annually between 3 November and 3 December to coincide with the International Day of Persons with Disabilities and the National Disability Rights Awareness Day on the 3rd of December. Further notes that the United Nations General Assembly in 1993, through Resolution 47-3, proclaimed the date of 3 December as an International Day of Persons with Disabilities, and in 2013, the South African government approved that November 3 to December 3 be observed as a National Disability Rights Awareness Month, and that December 3 be observed as the National Day of Persons with Disability. Takes this opportunity to salute the disability rights activists and the Disabled People South Africa, DPSA, in particular for the revolutionary work done before and after 1994 elections in securing the rights of persons with disabilities as equal citizens of South Africa. I so move.
Thank you very much. Is there any objection to the motion? Therefore, the motion is agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honorable members, we shall now proceed to the subject of debate today, which is working together to put an end to the vandalism, destruction, and theft of service delivery infrastructure in South Africa. Therefore, in welcoming the Honorable Deputy Minister, take the opportunity to call Deputy Minister Nel to introduce the subject matter.
Deputy Chair, honourable members, good afternoon, and thank you very much.
Point of order, Chairperson.
The point of order. What is the point of order?
The point of order is that Diamond, the honourable member, daar het sy hand na myne opgelig en jy maak geen van my 'n kans om 'n motion te raise. That's unfairness.
What is the point of order?
That's the point van order.
What is it?
Die punt van orde is, dis onregverdig in die hele ding nou.
Okay, thank you very much. I have used my discretion to give the honorable member to raise his motion, and that has been done. We are now dealing with the subject matter for discussion. May you proceed, honorable member Nel. Take your seat, Chair.
Deputy Chairperson, thank you very much for the opportunity to address this House in a very, very important debate. I would like to commend the Council for putting this very important issue on its agenda. I think the NCOP is very well placed to be having a constructive debate on this issue exactly because you bring together the three spheres of government. And this issue of what is generally referred to as cable theft or copper theft is in fact a much broader problem. And I would like to also commend you for posing this issue in a correct manner, not referring to it as cable or copper theft, but as the vandalism, as the destruction of our national infrastructure. I wish, Chairperson, that I would have been able to have shared with you some of the photographs that I took on the 18th of July on International Nelson Mandela Day. I was deployed to a municipality in Mpumalanga, and we did many good things on that day. We cut the grass and the weeds in a cemetery. We handed over food parcels to to women in the hospital who had given birth to babies on that special day. We were also supposed to have gone to patch potholes. So I was told that no, we can't go and patch potholes. Why? Because the company that was going to donate the tar for us to patch those potholes can't do it. Why? They don't have electricity to melt the tar. Why not? Cable theft. So I said, no, let's go and see this cable theft. So we go to the municipality's substation. Cable was stolen within 50 to 100 meters of that substation. Substation which had 2 armed guards, right? So the work had already started in digging a trench to replace the cable. So we inspected that. So as we inspect, we see that there are wires that were running over that trench. Then we start to pull up these wires. And Chair, as I said, I wish that I could have shared with you in greater detail the pictures that I took. But I myself started pulling up a wire, 10, 20, 30, 50, 100 meters of wire. It was leading to a house, and I thought I was going to be catching the culprits in the first house. But the cable ran around that house. Now 200-300 meters. We reach a sports field. Still, we're pulling up wire. 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 meters of wire we've pulled up. And it leads to a unit in a hostel that had been converted into family units. So, Chair, again, if I could have shown you the picture, it would have demonstrated the connection there. So we call the police. Then about a half an hour later, the owner arrives. What's the story? No, he's very sorry. This thing is a big misunderstanding. When he got there, everyone was doing this. So what's happening? No. He colluded with some official in council to bridge the prepaid box. So every month, he buys 50 rands worth of electricity, and then he runs his own little reticulation network through that. That sports field that we pulled up those wires, just to the naked eye, there were probably 7, 8 other connections running across that sports field. So I think, members, I just wanted to share that little anecdote because I think it demonstrates 2 very big interrelated problems that we face as a country. One, the theft and the destruction of our infrastructure, and it's very clear, the theft of that cable next to that substation wasn't the work of some petty criminal. That could only have been the work of a well-organized, well-informed syndicate that probably had inside information as to exactly where that cable was located. Secondly, it points to the challenge that we have of illegal electricity connections and the negative impact that that is having on the revenue of our municipalities, but also the destructive effect that those connections, those illegal connections, are having on the infrastructure, our electricity infrastructure. Now, in recent weeks and months, we've been receiving more and more reports. There have been more and more media reports of the theft of infrastructure and the impact of that. I think the first point just to make is that this is an international phenomenon. The British Transport Police have declared reducing cable theft as their second highest priority crime after terrorism. It's estimated that metal theft in the UK costs their economy approximately £770 million In South Africa, the estimate is that the theft of infrastructure, of copper cables alone, would cost, well, the direct cost would be in the region of 265 million rand. However, the indirect cost of the theft of those cables would come probably closer to about 5 billion rand. And what is terrible about that crime is that it not only does it hold our country back in our national drive to deliver infrastructure, because that infrastructure that is stolen, that is damaged, needs to be replaced with the money that should be going to new infrastructure. But it's also hitting at absolutely vital and key sectors of our economy and of basic service provision. In particular, it's hitting at transport, it's hitting at the provision of water, it's hitting at the provision of electricity, it's hitting at the provision of telecommunications. And I think what makes this crime so pernicious and difficult to deal with is that it's a highly organized form of crime. And I think we can detect about 4 key categories of role players. The first would be your opportunistic thieves. That would be someone who is either working on a construction site or close to that infrastructure, has opportunity, makes use of that opportunity, steals a meter or two of cable or a manhole cover or something like that, and then goes and steals it. Your second category would be your petty thieves. I mean, those who do this on a more or less full-time basis, but again, their focus is on small amounts. And as I'll indicate later in my input, the challenge with that is that when they are caught, in a sense, these are the foot soldiers of this operation. When they're caught, they are often charged and tried for the value of that meter or 2 meters of cable, not for the impact that the theft of that meter or 2 meters of cable causes on people's lives or on the economy. Your third category would be your foreign export agents, those who specialize in the export of scrap metal. And related to that would be your other category, and that would be your scrap metal dealers. And I want to hasten to say that we're not accusing every scrap metal dealer. There are many honest scrap metal dealers out there, and the industry, the organized scrap metal industry itself, is very concerned. But it's definite that many of those form an integral part in the value chain of this criminal enterprise. And then lastly, and probably most pernicious, would be your big, sophisticated, organized criminals. And I think what is more worrying is that those organized criminals are not focused in this area of cable or infrastructure theft alone. Our law enforcement agencies have indicated that there's a very strong link between cable infrastructure theft and illicit mining. A very strong correlation. Those forms of organized crime, in turn, have links to other forms of organized crime. So we're dealing with a very difficult challenge. And I think to meet that challenge, government has set up structures like the Non-Ferrous Metals Crime Combating Committee, which was established in 2008. I think that structure has brought together the police, within the police, the Hawks in particular, the NPA, it's brought together state security, it's brought together your public enterprises, and many elements in the private sector. And I think they've laid a good foundation, but there are limitations to that approach, which I'll deal with. The second set of initiatives by government has been the amendment of legislation like the Second-Hand Goods Act. And I think the tightening up of the Second-Hand Goods Act has helped. It's certainly increased the number of arrests that have taken place. The challenge in many instances is that those arrests have not always translated into convictions, and even where we secure convictions, the challenge has been that very often those convicted criminals are let off with very light sentences. So what are the key challenges that we're facing with, that we're faced with? As I said, the first is that many suspects are charged with general offenses, such as theft, and in many cases those matters are treated as petty theft. So from the point of view of the police, they don't get huge priority. From the point of the prosecution, they also don't get high priority. And from the point of courts, they attract very small or very light sentences. The second major challenge is that there's inadequate or inappropriate policing. And I think that's due, amongst others, to a lack of centralized information, limited resources and technology. Third major challenge has been a lack of the full implementation of the Second-Hand Goods Act by virtue of the fact that many of the police officers aren't necessarily as well trained in the provisions of that act as they should be. Fourth challenge is that the investigation of cases has often been very superficial. There's been a lack of intelligence-driven operations in the investigation of these crimes. There's been a low level of knowledge amongst many of the police officers. Another big challenge, apart from the challenges that we've referred to in the courts, has been the fact that at our ports of entry and exit, there's been inadequate attention given to the inspection of containers filled with scrap metal, which has allowed many of these scrap metal dealers and organized criminals to get the metal out of the country undetected. So at the beginning of this year, a working group was established consisting of the Deputy Ministers of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, of State Security, of Police, of Public Enterprises, and of Justice. And that working group has been meeting consistently. We are due to table a report containing a series of recommendations to the Presidential Infrastructure Coordinating Council now in November. So what I'm going to share with the House would be some of the work that we've done, but at this stage, really, it's general suggestions. They haven't necessarily been formally adopted. So we're putting it forward to assist a debate, and we would also be listening very carefully to the views of the House and incorporating those. I think the first thing that we're saying is that there needs to be greater coordination. We need to bring together the efforts of our law enforcement agencies, our state-owned enterprises, the private sector, and the scrap metal industry. Two, we need, and in line with that, we need greater intelligence to understand the nature and the patterns of these thefts and of the syndicates that are perpetrating them. Thirdly, we're saying that our focus must be on both ferrous as well as non-ferrous metals. We can't focus only on copper, because increasingly iron and steel is also being targeted. I think many members of this House would be aware that in the past month, there was an incident in which approximately 5 kilometers of old disused railroad were lifted in KwaZulu-Natal. Increasingly, there are reports that our electricity pylons are being targeted. So we're saying we need to focus both on ferrous as well as non-ferrous metals. Thirdly, we need to increase policing and enforcement. We need to involve our metro police. There needs to be aggressive policing of the scrap metal market, and they also need dedicated and specialized task teams to deal with these cases. The sixth area would be a number of legislative interventions. The first is that we would propose some amendments to the Second-Hand Goods Act to cover all persons in the illegal value chain, to tighten control over them, to extend the powers of the police relating to the seizure of goods, to prohibit cash payments under certain circumstances, to require electronic capturing of data to be recorded by the dealers when acquiring or disposing of scrap metal, and to change the sentencing regime. Seventh is that we would want amendments to Schedule 2 of the Second-Hand Goods Act to provide for the possibility of the imposition of minimum sentences in matters relating to these kinds of crimes. Eighth, we would want to propose amendments to the Electricity Regulation Act to criminalize the unlawful diverting of any electric current, i.e. the theft of electricity, which is a difficult crime at the moment to prosecute. Ninth, we would want to propose amendments to the Criminal Procedure Act to strengthen that act when it comes to dealing with bail applications, and also in illicit dealing or the unlawful possession of ferrous metals. 10th, we would like to have a declaration by notice in the Gazette for declaring the protection personnel of state-owned companies to be peace officers so that they can play a more active role in the combating of this crime. 10th, there are considerations, and I want to stress it at this stage that we haven't resolved on this, but there's a strong suggestion that we should consider as a country a temporary ban on the export of all copper scrap metal. There's also a suggestion that copper should be included in the definition of precious metals so that the provisions of the Precious Metals Act could then also apply to that, to the theft of copper infrastructure. We're also suggesting, 11th, that there should be research done by our scientific agencies that would develop the technology to make the identification of cables and other infrastructure easier, because that has proved to be one of the major challenges in the prosecution of this crime, is the positive identification of the infrastructure.
I'm tempted, but I don't want to stop you, Minister, with the kind of information that you're giving. Yeah. But maybe
I will try to then wrap up. I think then just also to say that at an operational level, we would envisage a greater role for structures such as our national joint operational and intelligence structures, the ability to bring together information at a central point and to analyze it there. We would suggest that we embark upon a national awareness raising and mobilization campaign because this is an effort, this is a program that will require a national effort, and we would need people at grassroots level to be involved as well. So, Chairperson, I'm sorry that I couldn't go into more detail, but really I hope that those remarks help this debate in just providing some broad characterization of sharing with the House how we understand this problem, what the existing government initiatives have been, what the limitations of those interventions have been, and what we, as that working group of deputy ministers, would be putting forward as proposals to strengthen our ability as a country to combat the scourge. So we thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister, Deputy Minister. May I call on MEC Somnia, Eastern Cape?
Deputy Chairperson of the NSOP, honorable members from provinces, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Over the last 20 years, our country has cast aside centuries of discrimination and oppression to forge ahead a new society built on freedom for all. In its dying years, apartheid unleashed a vicious wave of violence, and for decades since then, millions of ordinary South Africans struggle against this system to improve their lives and to restore peace and bring about a more just society. Part of our healing, therefore, as illustrated in the preamble of our Constitution, has been about a healing journey of addressing the harm and divisions caused by this pernicious system, as well as establishing a society based on democratic values, social justice, and fundamental human rights. Given our history of exclusion, skewed discrimination, of wealth and access to services, our government has over the past 2 decades remained engaged in ensuring that our people remain at the center of their own developmental trajectory. Even in the darkest moments, even as we suffered setbacks, our resolve never slackened, and our belief that our people were their own liberators stood firm and entrenched in our psyche, and through our own actions, such as the convening of the People's Assembly in Kliptown in 1955, where we all declared for the world to know that South Africa belonged to all who live in it. This declaration, which we uphold almost 60 years later, has been our clarion call. Chairperson, this is the backdrop against which we hold this debate today. Over the years, part of the liberation experience has been to ensure that our government is about the people, for the people. The many wanton acts of destruction and vandalism of property that has characterized our recent past are a glaring blight on the dignity of our people and what we fought for. Chairperson, part of improving access has been a deliberate effort by government to enhance the centrality of infrastructure. The biggest challenge for government has been the aging infrastructure that was meant to serve the interests of the few to be turned around to serve the needs of the majority. This has seen government engaging in partnerships with civil society through the establishment of many community fora to deal with developmental challenges that are closer to the people. Once more, this resonated well with the theme of a government of the people, by the people, as envisaged in the 1955 Freedom Charter, in a South Africa that belongs to all who live in it. It is therefore tragic that as we expanded this infrastructure, that is the property of the people, some elements within our communities have deemed it fit to destroy the very property that belongs to the people. Over the recent past, we have seen how members of communities trashed our cities and towns. During strikes, litter around garbage onto streets in destruction mode as they fought for better housing, better roads, better services, and access to water and electricity. There is no justification for such acts. Our country has a rich history of resolving conflict through dialogue and peaceful means. Our constitution, which is revered globally, was a product of a protracted consultative engagement. It cannot be right, therefore, that 20 years down the line, we have forgotten these lessons. It cannot be right that we let some criminal elements amongst us determine the nature of our future. Chairperson, as part of our contribution to this debate, our Premier has announced yesterday that we will assist our ailing municipalities by launching our Going Back to the Basics campaign on the 12th of November 2014. This campaign is aimed at recasting the spirit of Batupili back into the mainstream. We have a responsibility to build and not to destroy. We also have a responsibility to balance our law enforcement with a better sense of coordination, integration, and partnership with communities. In the Eastern Cape, we have had to invoke Section 139 to address very severe abnormalities in some of our municipalities, in the name of Makana and Nkwanka municipality, where governance and administration system had broken down. During the pre-7 May elections, even communities in the extremes of Tabankulu, they were of the view to withhold their sacred right to vote, citing lack of service delivery by municipalities. Linkages with our communities are key if we are serious about defeating the many acts of criminality that sometimes camouflage as discontent. Citizens have a legitimate expectation that services will be provided. Similarly, rights come with responsibility. In closing, Chairperson, we need to address unevenness in our system of coordination and how boundaries are demarcated to serve some of the development agencies. Services agencies that overlap, such as ESCOM, create difficulties for implementation, where certain parts of such public entities reside in 2 provinces. We need to strengthen our systems to allow for better synergies and convergence in implementation. Going back to basics requires that we rethink some of the earlier models for coordination we established and perhaps relook some of the laws that indirectly, negatively impact on coordination of service delivery through their mandates. The partnerships with community development workers in partnership such as working for water, working for fire, the maintenance of rural roads, and home-based programs need strengthening. The centrality of our government communicators cannot be overemphasized to communicate development successes as our government proceeds. When communities suffer, we need to respond to their cries with immense urgency. We need to engage more with stakeholders in consultative manner and take them into confidence on project timelines, constraints, and obstacles to implementation. When we place people at the center of our development trajectory, we close the widening social distance that leads to many of these instances where property is destroyed and vandalized. South Africa belongs to all those who live in it. We have a responsibility to protect its resources, both physical and otherwise, for future generations to enjoy. We are South Africans' major shareholders. We are its custodians. Let us protect property and infrastructure that belong to the people. Let us denounce all acts of vandalism that take us back. Let us reclaim our humanity and dignity as we move our province forward. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honorable Julius, can you continue the debate?
Thank you, Honorable Deputy Chair. I hear that the Eastern Cape is now going back to basics. Since when do you leave the basics in the first place? That's why things are going like that there. Honorable Chairperson, the continued vandalism, destruction and theft of service delivery infrastructure is at a critical level in our country. Plainly speaking, it's a perfect storm where fiscal constraints and poor socioeconomic conditions collide with criminality. We cannot therefore address vandalism and theft of service delivery infrastructure in isolation, the way that the Deputy Minister put it. We must rather work to address its underlying causes through effective policing, as you said, and a swift justice system. Secondly, growing our national economy to create jobs, because that's another aspect that we need to look at. Thirdly, we need to address the financial challenges and regulatory framework for replacement infrastructure. And fourthly, we need to create a culture of ownership in our local communities. Honorable Chair, the effect of vandalism on people's lives is not a nuisance that can be wished away. It is an issue which affects the lives and livelihoods of millions of South Africans. The national government must start acknowledging its failure to provide an effective and responsive police service. With all respect to our policemen and women in this country, it is the ANC national government's mismanagement of SAPS that has resulted in an under-resourced and ill-equipped SAPS, as the Deputy Minister acknowledged. Why have the intelligence services not been able to track down and arrest these vandals? Must we just sit back and accept that our government and civil society must be prey to such criminals without impunity? No, our government and our people cannot and will not be held ransom by a criminal element that exists in our society. We also cannot accept that governments have no backup plans in place for when things go wrong as a result of vandalism or any other cause outside of government's control. It's not a new thing. We should have backup plans. As in the case of the recent water crisis in Gauteng, where cable theft was apparently again to blame for the loss of water to the southern and western parts of Johannesburg, Krugersdorp, and the southwestern parts of Tshwane, including Centurion, Laudium, and Erasmia. A technical glitch. I don't know. In this case, once the first pump station at Eikenhof had lost power, the backup substation should have kicked in. However, the backup substation in Eikenhof had been out of service since November last year because nobody had bothered to fix or replace the faulty equipment. And just as things at Eikenhof were beginning to recover, Chairperson, Gauteng's second key pump station, the one at Pelmit, stopped pumping water. Pelmit supply water to large parts of Ekurhuleni, including Germiston, Tsakani, Brakpan, Boksburg. I'll take you to Gauteng one day. An industry-heavy region with high density residential areas. These are foreseeable consequences, and local governments must ensure that their contingency plans are in place and ready to go. And where things go wrong, local authorities must be able to work quickly to restore functionality as soon as possible. Chairperson, to restore the infrastructure destroyed by these vandals, local government has to incur the replacement cost of the physical infrastructure but must also incur an additional cost to secure the replacement infrastructure also. So it's costing us more than double. In the city of Cape Town alone, the city had to spend 116 million rand on operational security costs for the 2013-14 financial year. To put this into perspective, this money would have been far better spent on installing 10,000 toilets or approximately 35,000 street lamps in the city. This would have gone a long way to improve the lives of the city's residents. However, this problem is not isolated to Cape Town and the Western Cape. Before you jump again now. In December 2013, the South African Chamber of Commerce reported that copper theft increased to a level of 10.5 million rand. Now, I know the Deputy Minister says it is now at 265 million rand. Maybe we read different reports, but we can engage on that later. Meanwhile, PRASA announced that replacing copper cables now stands at 40 million rand, and this excludes the cost of revenue lost to trains not running, let alone the 300 million loss in the economy due to people not getting to work as the trains were not running. Across South Africa, Chairperson, scarce resources are being squandered on replacing existing infrastructure that would be better spent on other services and increased infrastructure. As a government, we need to instill a culture of ownership over this infrastructure by the communities which it serves. These facilities are, after all, installed by government, but they belong to all South Africans, and that's the message we should get across. Honorable Chairperson, we cannot fool ourselves or pretend that the prevalence of vandalism, destruction, and theft of service delivery infrastructure can solely be attributed to a criminal element alone. It is rather also a symptom of far deeper socioeconomic circumstances that our government fails to address year after year. We heard about 20 years, 20 after 20. Unfortunately, you won't be in government that time. The DA is well known as a party that delivers in the areas that we govern. Where the ANC national government is willing, the DA is working together with them to keep service delivery on track, despite this vandalism. However, Chairperson, a lasting solution to this problem will not be found in this if this House keeps talking about the problem without challenging the government to execute the laws that already exist, that are in place. This House must learn to assert its constitutional authority and ensure that the executive implements the legislation that we have passed. That is what we as legislators in the National Council of Provinces can and should be doing. Thank you, Chairperson. After all, Honorable Chairperson, how can we sit here and reprimand criminals who unduly benefit at state expense when the president of the AMC,
Honorable member, your time is up.
have unduly benefited the amount of 246 million?
Your time is up. Honorable Moapi.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chair, the Deputy Minister. Honorable Julius, it's unfortunate. I would not really waste my time responding to unfounded statement that you have just stipulated over here. And apart from that, luckily you happen to be in my committee, and I know you, that's how you are. You have a lot of contradictions. At times you raise things without necessarily applying your mind. It's really unfortunate. Chair, thank you very much. Without any waste of time, I think it's proper to acknowledge the discussion around vandalism, theft of service delivery infrastructure in South Africa. And the main aim for us is to ensure what is it that we are going to do, Honorable Julius, to ensure that we work together towards addressing this particular challenge. Chair, vandalism of infrastructural facilities is a persistent social problem in all major areas in South Africa, including Western Cape. Despite the inadequacy in infrastructural provision, the available facilities have been consistently vandalized by criminals and the mob. This has undoubtedly strained the limited resources of the government across the three spheres: the nature, the types, location and cost of vandalism, as well as identifying the various vandals involved needs a concerted effort from all stakeholders. Vandalism, Honorable Deputy Chair, takes many forms, e.g. graffiti on public infrastructure, which is common in many inner cities. Other more serious forms of vandalism may take place during the public unrest. It could be perpetrated by individuals in the course of his business or with the intention of stealing public property. Water pipelines, electricity cables, electrical transformers, telecommunication equipment, and government buildings are more vandalized than other facilities. This has cost our government and the communities substantial resources to effect the replacement and repair of the vandalized infrastructure. Infrastructural facilities are central to the rapid socio-economic development of our country. It provides the environment for productive activities to take place and facilitate the generation of economic growth, thereby reducing or eliminating poverty. Infrastructural availability reduces urban decay, limits slum development, and makes environment livable. But the problem seems to have been compounded by vandalism of the available facilities in most of our areas. Infrastructural vandalism refers to willful or malicious destruction of public infrastructure, which effectively disrupt the normal function of the facilities and consequently requiring an emergency repair response. The questions arising are, who are the vandals, Honorable Julius? What propelled them into vandalism? And how their nefarious activities can be curtailed? I think those are the most important things that we need to address. In the recent past, South Africa has witnessed an upsurge in the level of vandalism, destruction and theft of service delivery infrastructure, a situation which is currently posing a major drawback in the country's ability to accelerate service delivery implementation for the benefit of the long-suffering communities. This new dangerous culture and attitude is not only cancerous to the South African society, but equally costly to the state. It gives the impression that South Africa, while emancipated from the legacies of the past through freedom that we all cherish, our people are still lagging behind in terms of ownership of their institutions, services, and installations. This alone suggests the challenge of continuous education for all communities as part of the country's best practices for the achievement of project legitimacy, sustainability, and integrity of our service delivery protocol. A greater chunk of municipal budget is now being recycled to refinance and reconstruct vandalized, destroyed, or stolen infrastructure installations. Many people and individuals who are making a living through theft of service delivery infrastructure are letting our government and communities down, especially when funds that are supposed to be utilized to enhance socio-economic status of our communities are now thrown into the drain. If the country is to succeed, Honorable Deputy Chair, in this fight against vandalism, destruction and theft of service delivery infrastructure, it is necessary that all of us, including Honorable Julius, across all sectors of the civil society, to work together, all hands on the deck, to completely eradicate this new culture, conduct, and attitude which is unpatriotic in our communities. Whilst much has been done in the area of service delivery implementation by the post-apartheid government to date, you see access to clean water, you see access to sanitation, you see access to electricity during this post-apartheid, which is more to infrastructural investment. Any continued theft or vandalism of these assets diminishes the country's ability to make provision for future generations and those of the entire populace. Given the challenges of working together to eradicate this scourge and loss, the questions that still need to be asked are the following. 1, what has happened to our peace-loving citizens? Who are the instigators of this crime? Are these individuals in their own? Who is the actual benefiting from this crime at the loss of the entire community? Is this probably the work of syndicates? Is it some manifestation of inside job by internal and external syndicates bent on ridiculing the state service delivery system through sabotage? What are the root causes of this attitude? How can we collectively address, Honorable Chair, eradicate this destructive attitude in our communities? What is that we are not doing well? What is the current state and monitoring, safeguarding and custodianship of our infrastructure installations? Do communities have a sense of ownership of these installations as service delivery beneficiaries? What is the state of community participation in the service delivery project and infrastructure? The ANC in its 53rd National Conference in Mangaung have resolved that public participation, Chairperson, is more paramount as and when we engage our communities on issues that are challenges faced by them. Last month, on the 31st of October 2014, our President, Honorable Jacob Zuma, on his Siahlola service delivery monitoring visit at Mopani district, learned that some of the boreholes were not working properly because of theft and vandalism. He also heard, Honorable Deputy Chair, that the water shortage was made worse by illegal connections to the service reservoirs. The task of monitoring and safeguarding service delivery installations and infrastructure is not the responsibility of the government alone. While the national and provincial and local sphere of government are central to the challenge of safeguarding these installations and key points, it is equally the duty of communities as responsible citizens to take full ownership by protecting these sites. This cannot take place without the necessary education in the art of responsible citizenship and patriotism. The present government and its leaders have fought very gallantly in placing South Africa where it is today. The country should not tolerate vandalism, theft, and destruction of its valuable infrastructure and assets, irrespective of who is behind it. The current pace of development and service delivery trajectory is very much unprecedented and should not be left in the hands of criminals, some in business receiving and buying stolen state strategic asset. To simply destroy, Honorable Deputy Chair, such social progress and economic advancement through acts of vandalism and theft is totally unacceptable. Democracy and freedom should be equally enable citizens to engender a culture of responsibility, responsiveness, and respect for property. People should be told not to abuse infrastructure that is meant to improve their lives. For this, President Jacob Zuma assessed that we need to work together to ensure that we move forward and not spend time fixing infrastructure that has been destroyed by unscrupulous people. He continues to urge members of the community to report all wrongdoing to the police so that acts of vandalism, theft, and destruction of these assets is rooted out. Chairperson, there's quite a number of incidents that one can relate to. However, because of time, Chairperson, allow me to indicate that the current spate of theft, vandalism, and destruction of service delivery infrastructure is clear and set indictment on how easy it is for illegal metal trade to operate. It is clear that some of the scrap metal industry needs much stricter regulations as earlier stipulated by the Deputy Minister. To ensure that thieves have to be dealt with decisively. Although much has been done to punish wrongdoers, the number of offenders who are re-arrested suggests that the penalties imposed, Honorable Deputy Chair, are disproportionate to the fact that it has on vulnerable communities. Minimum penalties do not serve as a true and sufficient deterrent. Courts of law had to be duly apprised of the prevalence of this crime in our communities so that heavy fines and long-term imprisonment are imposed on offenders. Chair, working together to put an end to this vandalism, destruction, and theft of service delivery infrastructure in South Africa should be implemented using the back-to-basic methodology as propounded by the Honorable State President during the recent local government summit, where he said that as a country, we have not yet realized the goals of public participation and cooperation or cooperative governance as envisaged in Chapter 3 of the Constitution of South Africa.
Summarize, Honorable Member.
Chairperson, allow me to conclude by saying we wish to encourage all our communities, those that are involved in this theft, vandalism, and destruction of infrastructural development, to explore all avenues that are applicable, to engage, Chairperson, in conclusion, the Select Committee on Petitions and Executive Undertakings, engage on provincial and presidential hotlines, constituency offices, ward committees that would always ensure that they pursue their frustrations around service delivery challenges. I thank you.
May I also take the opportunity to caution members As I caution or bring to the attention of the Speaker that his time or her time is running out, I'm not saying to members that now they must dictate to me to conclude or to stop the debate or the discussion. And the more you keep on saying time up, I give you more seconds. So please, just be in order, honorable members. Honorable Masemola.
Thank you very much, Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Minister in the Office of the Presidency, Deputy Ministers present here, members of the Executive Council coming from our provinces, honorable members of the House, comrades and fellow South Africans. We are meeting here today noting the historical legacy of the African National Congress of accommodative approach to opposing ideological strands to be articulated within its ranks as a profound base that gave material and institutional embodiment to the development and strengthening of the strategy for liberation. This increasingly embraced class analysis of the social forces and their impact on the agenda of fundamental imperative, and consequently made a meaningful and significant efforts in bringing liberation, freedom, and democracy in this country. The freedom which we attained primarily with the support of the broader society enabled a considerable shift in the policy agenda aimed at pragmatic approach to development, of which in some parts of the country that has become victims of vandalism, destruction, and theft by those whose social orientation is insensitive and trivial to the national cause of reconstruction and development. National democratic revolution we are advancing, therefore, has brought improvements of substance to the lives of many people and have adjusted differentials of their needs, and as such continue to combat the realities they face, that of poverty, unemployment, and inequalities, appropriate policing needed, and protection of their spaces and related infrastructure provided for their livelihood. Honorable Deputy Chairperson, this sitting is taking place few days after we have experienced the loss of 3 South Africans of outstanding qualities who distinguished themselves in the family of humanity. Great sportspersons whose greatness and significance was felt beyond the local communities and the shores of our country. Senzo Meiwa, Mbulaini Mlaudzi, Pindi Lamvelase, may their souls rest in peace. Indeed, this debate is welcomed, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, so that we do not just obviate this to the misunderstanding of the development plans and impatience of the people, but to contextualize these developments of worrying trends that might have both objective and as well as subjective realities. It is considerably worth noting, therefore, clearly that it has got elements of criminality by organized syndicates, counter-revolution, violence, and arrogance. In responding to the above realities, quality leadership needs to be provided at all costs, supported by civilian intelligence and vigilance to mitigate the causal factors and respond accordingly. And that is what the African National Congress at the moment is hard at work, working together with the people of this country to exactly make sure that we indeed pay the necessary close attention to this issue and lead the nation into prosperity. Honorable Deputy Chairperson, first and foremost, the struggle for liberation, freedom, and democracy had consistently and aggressively raised political, educational, cultural, and discipline level of the people. It immersed them into the tradition and culture of the struggle to strengthen their consciousness as a force to defend, advance, and ensure the durability and longevity of our national democratic revolution. As such, despite the brutality of the apartheid system, targets for political operations were never the socio-economic infrastructure, given its essence to the lives of the people. And generally, communities, despite little infrastructure that they had at that time, gave them the necessary protection as they valued whatever they had at that point in time. And today, as we're debating here, it is quite worrying to see what is happening in many parts of the Republic where social and economic infrastructure is becoming vandalized, destroyed by those insensitive individuals who are pursuing their own selfish interest. Today, under the situation of normality and freedom, the objectives long pursued as the bedrock of our democracy, and key to that being basic human rights enshrined in our Constitution. In some communities, these rights are not well enjoyed because we witness violent demonstrations of discomfort and dissatisfaction characterized by vandalism, destruction, and theft of infrastructure. That is critical to the well-being of our people. Infrastructure gets destroyed and stolen despite sufficient platforms of engagement and dialogue, and we call upon leaders of our people on all fronts closer to them to make sure that they close gaps with communities which flare up angers, maybe as a result of insufficient interaction and mandating processes. But we are quite sure, as the African National Congress, that appropriate structures have been provided for dialogue, engagement, interactions, so that whatever problems and challenges characterizing those localities do receive the necessary attention they so much deserve. This phenomenon, therefore, Deputy Chairperson, seeks to become a permanent feature of the societal challenge, which degenerates social progress given the impact of its severity in the conditions of the affected communities. Uncompromisingly, therefore, we should denounce this non-progressive, evil and short-sighted acts and mobilize our communities to stand up against and confront this reality. Honorable Deputy Chairperson, vandalism, destruction, and theft of service delivery infrastructure is a direct infliction of pain in the psychosocial well-being of the nation and a threat to both democracy and the Reconstruction and Development Program. And that is why we should say no to theft and in all strong possible terms condemn these acts and caution the communities against them. And in Limpopo Province, a joint operations committee of the law enforcement agencies working together with our municipalities are all paying a closer attention to this situation, led by a joint committee of the Department of Local Government, which is COGSTA, and as well as Transport Safety and Security. The effects of this situation, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, on the national fiscals is in a manner unprogressive because progress registered gets reversed, thus spending money in circles, whereas it is needed somewhere to improve the conditions of the deserving communities. Honorable Deputy Chairperson, we have legalized the arena of ideological contest, a colossal task and an essential component of intellectual exercise for guidance and clearing of a wider path for growth and development of the people, for them to value the socio-economic essence of the infrastructure provided and therefore take it upon themselves to protect their own gains. Philosophical basis of development should underpin our approach and provision of these services for political and social essence. This provides a platform to destroy, therefore, the psychosocial nests of conception and consumption of these wrong thinking and cut the chains created that squeeze and reorientate the actors to proper direction of becoming activists of community development and protection. This unwarranted acts, Deputy Chairperson, acts as counter-revolutionary because they deny the people of their basic human rights, but also lacks patriotism, thus creating conditions and circumstances of endless unhappiness opportune for manipulation by forces opposed to our revolution. Therefore, law enforcement agencies must act, and in particular judiciary, make it difficult for the perpetrators to enjoy the comfort in communities. A front of development stakeholders should relook into this situation and emerge with a set of policy proposals on how to strengthen the law to deal with this situation very seriously. We need to also redesign our approach to infrastructure provision and strengthen the strategy of communication with our communities. Honorable Deputy Chairperson, we need to achieve a decisive victory by repelling these counter-revolutionary attempts because the quality of lives is critical, because the quality of lives of our people is critical for the future of this country and generations to come. We are not unrealistically optimistic. Hence, it is not a matter of probabilities, but they must to have the situation under control because the superiority of the revolution with regard to posture and strength is essential. These acts result in a loss of data bases, IT systems failure, power grid and water supply failure, disruptions of public transport, supply chain of illegal business, overstretching of resources, disruption of schools, affect provision of health services, promote sleaze and unethical transactions. This criminal phenomenon, therefore, needs visible and intensive response based on zero tolerance to vandalism, destruction, and as well as theft to infrastructure. Chairperson, as we celebrate 20 years of our democracy, social environments in many communities are characterized by socio-economic infrastructure with social purpose. Regrettably, in some communities, as we have said, we see undermining of the domestic diplomacy and discussion, and people opt for arrogance and confrontation, which makes public infrastructure vulnerable as well. Those who trigger that hope to create conditions and circumstances for a national crisis, opportunity sway for political goals. They seek to create mass power required for social revolution under unfavorable conditions, because the people of this country for over 300 years of colonialism and apartheid have suffered and therefore cannot reverse the gains of the democratic breakthrough for political expedience. Those opposed to our revolution believe in rapid emotions, whipping, informed by their appalling state of analysis and mind, aimed at destabilization of governance, hoping and expecting rewards and personal aggrandizement, are indeed suffering from confusion of ends with means and techniques, from imbalanced illusion of extreme subjectivity, and as such they deserve compliments of the most slothful indolence. Deputy Chairperson, given the theme of the debate, it is important to note that leadership of our people at various levels are in full possession of the fundamental orientation to teach and caution against vandalism, destruction, and theft, and should all remain faithful to the principles and the cause of struggle for better life and protection of the infrastructure. In conclusion, we should proceed with the necessary prerequisite for consolidation of our democratic gains by educating our people to remain soldiers of humanity for social justice and progress. I thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Malapisi, Northwest.
Honorable Deputy Speaker, Honorable Deputy Minister, Comrade Andrisnel, Honorable members, MECs present here, the Chief Whip of the Majority Party, Meunai, and all honorable members, let me take this opportunity to greet you all. Honorable Deputy Speaker, when the President of the Republic of South Africa, Honorable President Zuma, was awarded the Freedom of the Makena Municipality Award in Grahamstown, Eastern Cape, he said this, and I quote, "No amount of frustration should justify violence and destruction of property." He further added and said, "While our constitution allows protest action as part of freedom we fought for, the violence that sometimes accompanies the protest is unacceptable," close quote. Honorable Deputy Speaker, it is my conviction that the right to protest and demonstrate, amongst all other, goes with responsibility. There is a serious lack of responsibility during most of these marches by protesters. The new phenomenon is experienced where most, and if not all, protests are characterized by violence. We need to agree, Honorable Deputy Chairperson, that violent protests during service delivery are unjustified in the ANC-led government because we are a listening, caring, and accountable government. Violence in all its forms is unfortunate, and as a country, we need to discourage it within our communities. It is sad to read that South Africa is perceived by many as the protest capital of the world. The most common reason for these protests are, among others, followed by the following: unequal and segregated distribution of land in both rural and urban areas, the demanding for housing, poor service delivery, especially with regard to water and sanitation, government corruption, especially at the local municipality by some officials, evictions and forced removals, rampant crime, unemployment, and at times police brutality, electricity disconnection and provision of electricity to shack settlement. During the protest, the following are often experienced: same infrastructure complained about is broken down, if not destroyed. The shops of innocents are being looted. The cars of innocent people are being damaged. Tires are bent on the roads. Traffic lights are broken down. Signboards are being destroyed, and at times houses and innocent lives are affected, if not lost. Honorable Deputy Chair, such cannot be termed genuine service delivery protest because there are criminal activities, like it has been said, involved. For an example,
In the province of the Northwest in Bokone-Bophirima, especially in Ngaka-Modiri-Molema district, communities complain and protest concerning water shortage in their areas, and after a thorough investigation by the law enforcing agency and the government, the following were found: that water pipes were cut, boreholes were destroyed, valves were removed, transformers were stolen, motor pumps were stolen, generators were stolen, JoJo tanks that were provided for water either are stolen or are burned down. It would be important, Honorable Deputy Chair, that as guided by the frameworks set out in the white paper on the local government of 1998, that the proposed developmental model of local government is realized. Developmental local government espouses the philosophy of sustainable ways to meet the socio-economic needs of residents and improve the quality of life, particularly targeting the most marginalized and the poorer of the poorest members in our society. The ward councillors are expected to ensure that monthly community meetings are held and that concerns related to the wards they served are addressed. Apart from the articulation of residents' needs in council, ward councillors are responsible for giving ward residents a progress report, explaining the decision of the council in community resource to issues relating to developmental projects and progress affecting them, assessing whether the municipality's program and plans are having their intended impact, assessing whether services are being delivered fairly, effectively, and in a sustainable way, determining whether capital projects are being committed in accordance with the integrated development plan, staying in close contact with their communities and constituencies to ensure that council is informed of all issues on the ground and conveying important information from council to the residents. In conclusion, Honorable Deputy Chair, councillors therefore serves as an interface between communities they represent and the municipal officials who design and implement development policies. The councillor's job is not to just serve the voice of the people for the expression of their community needs, but also to act as a watchdog and ensure the municipalities implements policies to address the needs of the citizens. The failure of councillors to execute this will lead to, as it happened at times, to protest and thus vandalism and stealing of service delivery infrastructure. The government at all levels, together with community leaders, must work together to ensure that government assets are protected.
Can you really conclude now, Honorable Member?
During protest. It is also important that criminal activities during this protest must be identified and criminals involved be brought to book, and the law should take its course. If we do all this, Deputy Chairperson, working together with our people, we must bring an end to the vandalism, destruction, and theft of service delivery infrastructure in our country, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Honorable Mateus, can you continue the debate?
I'll take this opportunity to greet the August House. Deputy Chair, it is indeed said that this House invites to debate on vandalism of theft and service delivery infrastructure, as though it's purely a criminal matter without context. The Portfolio Committee on Water and Sanitation recently expressed concern over the vandalism and theft of the so-called service delivery infrastructure, especially in the Madibeng municipality, but conveniently forgot to mention that despite the Hartepeespoort, Rooikoppies, Valkop, Klipvoort dams, residents of this area, especially poor black, faces a daily struggle to access clean water. The community, who are black and poor, living next to the dams, complained to South African Human Rights Commission that they went out without water for days, weeks, and months, while wealthy owners of the mines, tourism companies, agribusiness, and other large industries did not experience water shortage. Our constituency guarantees every human being right of dignity as birthright, and indeed linking to the socio-economic right like access to clean water and sanitation. Yet both DA-led Cape Town in the Western Cape and ANC-led Makaka municipality in the Free State both built toilets in open public spaces without enclosing them. In Madibeng municipality, like the rest of the country, the wealthiest pay less per kiloliter of water than households, and worse. They are hardly ever held accountable for significant wastage, for cleaning up their population of groundwater with dangerous chemicals, or theft that some commit. In sharp contrast are the manicure laws, are well-watered and swimming pools in the suburbs are at the expense of the poor. It is an open secret that South Africa is the most unequal society in the entire world, and is more unequal now than it was during apartheid. Oxfam, that were two of the wealthiest people in South Africa, have as much wealth as 50% of the population. Surely this is not a good story to tell. And the people of South Africa has demonstrated. Since 2009, South Africa has a protest every 2 days. There have been at least one protest every 2 days. In all cases, politicians are not accountable to the people who elect them and use police to arrest leaders of the protest, leaders in charge of the public, like in that Sianguma area. Who is charged for the incompetence of... But who is in charge of this indignity of millions black without jobs, without water or sanitation? Who is in charge for the incompetence, decent corruption, and mismanagement that always leave the poor as victims? The vandalism and theft of service delivery infrastructure cannot be isolated from socio-economic reality of the country. Economic freedom is the solution. Give people the ability to sustain their lives to their full potential. Otherwise, we'll just address the symptoms. The people of South Africa, especially the poor blacks, need economic freedom in their lifetime. And they need it now. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Member. Honorable Ramaramela Salga.
Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NCOP, Honorable Ministers, MECs, the Chief Whip of the NCOP, Honorable Members of the NCOP, Provincial Reps, ladies and gentlemen. The South African local government wishes to convey its appreciation to the NCOP for taking time to deliberate on the very critical matter of vandalism, destruction and theft of service delivery infrastructure in South Africa. Municipalities are particularly affected, and SALGA wishes to highlight some of the challenges in this regard, as well as to submit proposals on how municipalities can be assisted in addressing this very costly occurrence. Due to developments in the recent past, a lot of focus has been placed on cable theft, in particular copper cables. While the impact of cable theft on municipalities and their communities is significant, theft and vandalism of infrastructure, unfortunately, is not limited to cable theft. However, as the effects of cable theft is the most visible form of theft of infrastructure, the cost implications thereof will be highlighted first. As honorable members are aware, the metropolitan municipalities of Tshwane, Johannesburg, and Ekurhuleni were subjected to serious interruptions in water supply in late September due to vandalism at an Eskom power station in Alroad. The result of this was that reservoirs ran dry, and in addition to that, certain communities were left without power. Large areas of Gauteng experienced serious interruption in water supply. Salga wants to agree with the Minister of Water Affairs and Sanitation, who remarked as follows, quote, "Issues of cable theft should be dealt with as economic sabotage. The justice system must not deal with them as petty crimes, but as economic crimes," close quote. The South African Chamber of Commerce and Industry's copper theft barometer indicated last week that according to its barometer, copper theft increased to 13 million in September, up from 12 million the previous month. It is stated that this was the fourth monthly increase in a year and further exacerbates that has been relatively volatile 9 months to date, with the barometer ranging from 15.4 million to 10.7 million. Honorable Chair, this does not include losses by municipalities, which I will now highlight. Deputy Chair, the City of Cape Town indicated that over a 6-month period, it has lost around 10 million due to vandalism of infrastructure. Residents across the city have also suffered damage to the electrical appliances from voltage surges experienced as a result of vandalism to electricity infrastructure. The City of Cape Town also loses approximately 200,000 per year due to traffic signal cable theft. This is in addition to the cost incurred by the city in financing its cable theft unit, which serves as a preventative measure. It goes without saying, Honorable Deputy Chair, that the theft of traffic signal cables have a huge impact on peak time traffic in urban areas and often result in motor vehicle accidents, which have cost and safety implications of residents. This city is spending more than 500,000 to repair cables and safeguard them for future thefts and vandalism. Deputy Chairperson, the eThekwini municipality has been experiencing high volumes of non-ferrous metals left with infrastructure such as electricity, water, traffic, and engineering being targeted. The theft of electrical infrastructure includes almost anything of scrap value and domestic use. This includes electrical cables such as street light cables, house service cables, medium and high voltage cables. Moreover, left for neutrals and sectorials for substations, which result in high voltage that causes damage to household appliances, is frequent occurrences, as well as copper earthing conductors at poles and substations. Municipalities have indicated that although it has not been able to cost the impact thereof, petty theft of infrastructure such as copper taps in public places also occur regularly. In Mossel Bay, in the past year, 980 meters of copper overhead 22 kV line was stolen while it was live, amounting to the loss of 130,000. This does not take into account the danger associated with the tampering with the electrical cables. Another type of infrastructure being stolen regularly is manhole covers. Some are removed as soon as it is replaced. Although the trend has moved to a concrete base cover, the metal inserted for support still attract those in need of money. In Ekurhuleni, Deputy Chairperson, 11 kilometers of railway track was stolen, which formed part of the railway siding. This has resulted in a business at the end of the track not being able to deliver on the train coaches it manufactures and seriously impacts not only on the business but the socio-economic situation of the community. Road traffic signs and tourist signage are also often being vandalized and stolen. Some of the measures taken by municipality to address this include replacing old infrastructure, monitoring infrastructure remotely, establishing an infrastructure protection unit, sourcing replacement materials. Municipal electrical standby personnel also patrol high-risk areas during call-outs in these areas. Municipalities also resort to altering construction methods such as using steel poles as ducting and filling with cement after installation for above ground cables, digging deeper trenches and anchoring the cables to the floor of the trenches and planting cement covers over cables to avoid unrestricted pullouts. Due to the huge cost of these preventative measures, it is not all instances possible to take such action. But SALGA want to recommend that municipalities, provincial governments, state-owned entities, and South African police services must collaboratively act cooperatively to ensure visible policing and crime prevention. SALGA welcomes the initiative of the Minister of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs for establishing the working group consisting of his ministry, justice, correctional services, state securities, public enterprises, as well as the South African Police Service, to identify and make proposals to deal with the matter. And SALGA and its member municipalities commit to work with the working group in order to address this serious matter. In order to address the theft of infrastructure, SALGA wants to propose that the Second-Hand Goods Act be amended to extend powers currently provided to the police, the Metropolitan Police officers, as well as traffic officers and other officers of peace, as this will enable municipalities to act against scrap metal dealers, including the so-called baguette shops, being informal cash for scrap shops that encourage petty theft of copper and other infrastructure for quick cash in small amounts. Stricter limitations on the export of copper and other metals should also be considered. It is a known fact that South Africa exports copper the export of copper by the South African government is far exceeding the production rate in the country. Let us work together to put an end to the increasingly destructive practice by ensuring tougher sanctions on the supply and demand sides, so as to ensure that our infrastructure services indeed do benefit our communities as intended. We trust that this House will do utmost to ensure appropriate action to safeguard our infrastructure assets and that future investment therein is not shortchanged by opportunists who appear to have been emboldened by our current inaction. I thank you, Deputy Chairperson.
Thank you very much, Honourable Member. Honourable David Roy, may you continue the debate, Northern Cape.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson, Deputy Minister, Minister in the Presidency, Honourable Ministers present, colleagues from other provinces, members of the House, comrades and friends. It is indeed a great pleasure for me to address you this afternoon and to share with you some thoughts on the theme for today. I have no doubt that the deliberations of this House sitting will be fruitful and its outcomes will assist all elected representatives to do everything in their power to intensify the struggle against no vandalism, destruction and theft of service delivery infrastructure in South Africa. Honourable Chairperson, building infrastructure in South Africa is part of redressing injustices of the past, but also creating opportunities for economic development. It is a well-known fact that there are serious shortcomings in social amenities and also road infrastructure in our black communities in South Africa as a whole. As we create new infrastructure to stimulate economic growth, we must simultaneously create new look-down ships areas, but also bring them closer to centers of business and employment. Honourable Chairperson, if we want to address the issue of vandalism, destruction and theft of property, we need to be hard on ourselves in analyzing the problem that we face. Some of the issues were raised earlier by the Deputy Minister, and I think I need to add one or two suggestions in addressing those issues that he raised so eloquently. One of the things is that we must begin with ourselves. Are we as public representatives, whether local, provincial or national, taking our communities along in processes as they unfold towards delivering of infrastructure? Are we making sure that our processes allows communities to be involved in creating their own infrastructure through different methods of implementation? I want to add to the issues raised by the Deputy Minister. In many of the things he raised, I think one of the things we must also look at, as he correctly said, most of these articles are being taken out of the country. What are the involvement of other international forces when these things leave our country? Who are creating the markets? But also, as we destroy, or those who are destroying our own infrastructure, are they creating opportunities for certain business people to do more business with the state by destroying what is already there and creating opportunity for those in the construction sector? As we today reflect on this serious challenge we face, we must never forget the architect of this new democracy, Oliver Reginald Tambo. No level of intimidation, killing of people, torture of people, and jailing of our people could ever make him doubt that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, and that together we can build a new South Africa. As we continue to deliver on our mandate, we must be all aware that the size of the cake remains the same, but the beneficiaries increase as it relates to how apartheid planning was done. I think we must also use, Honorable Chairperson, the opportunity not to try and score points here on what is the right thing to do, but is to follow the example of our leader that as South Africans, this is our common problem. Let's be patriotic and deal with the issue at hand. Chair, the South African government adopted a national infrastructure plan in 2012, which aims to transform our economic landscape while simultaneously improving the delivery of basic service. The plan also supports the integration of African economics. Government will, over the period of 3 years, invest billions in new upgradings of infrastructure. What is it that we need to do to protect that? Honorable Chairperson, vandalism is an act of counter-revolution in my view, intent to undermine governance and government as a whole. And I want to come to a current matter, Honorable Chair, relate to our province, in the John Taule Gaisiwe district, where people are demanding roads. Now, without going into the detail, Honorable Chair, I just want to give you a snapshot of some of these things we identified which relate to the debate that we have today. That is an area which we will know is a remnant of the older party system of Bantustans. Roads is a serious problem. We all agree with the community. But when we brought the graders and everything there to make sure that we start to address the issue of gravel roads, our equipment was bent. We couldn't understand. That's what the community need. But the same equipment that we had to use to deal with their problems has been bent. After long protracted discussions and agreements on the building of 2 new roads in that area, we brought the contractors on site. And when they start to do the construction work, they have been blocked by a certain group of people. We will not allow you to build the roads. It raises a question. Is it all about the roads, or what is it all about? Our information through our agencies told us, no, it is not. It's the ambitions of people to take political office. And for them to see government deliver does not suit their agenda. Therefore, Honorable Chair, I think those are signals that we need to do what we need to do is to be very firm and not allow ourselves to be undermined. Vandalism outstrips municipal capital investment in infrastructure. The problem of theft of community services may continue to escalate, which will seriously hamper the good intentions of government to ensure effective and efficient service delivery to communities. It is imperative that communities are educated on the negative impact that vandalism has on service delivery, And these are the relevant representatives of the people who need to do what we are supposed to do, is to talk to our people and stay close to our people. It should be highlighted that theft and vandalism are major contributors to increased poor service delivery. This could have catastrophic results which could lead to serious infrastructure failures. We are aware that water and sanitation utilities commonly experience vandalism and theft of their property. These acts of vandalism are widespread in both urban and rural settings. The acts of vandalism take a number of forms which include water theft, leading directly to a loss of revenue for the utility. And we know the after effect of what that means to our communities in terms of pricing of services. The international community has endorsed a commitment to meet the Millennium Development Goal of halving by 2015 the proportion of people without sustainable access to safe drinking water, electricity, and basic sanitation. In South Africa, the upscaling of service delivery, reducing of backlogs, remains a necessary and urgent priority. These indicated specific goals have proved highly elusive in informal settlements, as the operating and maintenance of the services currently provided constitutes the biggest annual outlay of many municipalities. I have already referred to that, Honourable Chair. Amongst the tasks that clearly face parliamentarians is continuous engagement with citizens themselves. We must also make sure that we give full expression to their innate abilities as part of the effort to guarantee them an opportunity to fully develop their potential to make a meaningful contribution to the nation. Our intervention should confront the challenge of intergeneration poverty. We are referring to these important elements of democracy, peace, and empowerment of the people in the fight against poverty because of our history as South Africans that tells us that we must not fail to overcome the evil legacy of apartheid. Honourable Chairperson, sometimes when we deliver service to communities, we do estimates on what communities need. However, what is clear in most cases is there are too few facilities for too many people. And we have seen that, and several examples has been made, Honourable Chair, and I'm not going to refer back to that. Honourable Chair, I want to come back to the last two inputs of my speech.
As you conclude.
As I'm concluding, Honourable Chair, the delivery of a sustainable service begins with the realities of facility function and use in communities that reflects the realities on the ground. Destruction of infrastructure for especially the disadvantaged communities represents a reversal of our democratic gains. It is tantamount to counter-revolutionary actions. It is therefore important to condemn any such action, but also scrutinize closely those involved in these actions. We must report to our people on a regular basis on our plans and progress, but also take action against those who are failing to do so. I thank you.
Thank you very much. May I call on Honourable Debate Sonyati to continue the debate?
Thank you, Deputy Chair, Minister in the Presidency, Honourable Deputy Minister, the Honourable MECs, Honourable Whip of the House, Honourable Members of Parliament, Honourable Members of Provincial Legislature, comrades and fellow South African. Honourable Chair, it is with great delight that I stand here and participate in this debate. The theme under discussion is reflective of the crisis we are faced with as a nation. The crisis manifests through theft and vandalism, and thus defaces our infrastructure whilst bleeding the public coffers dry. As correctly stated by the Deputy Minister, Minister Nel. This deliberate intent to retard our economy escalates losses into billions of rands a year. As a result, this government is compelled to mend more instead of revealing the desired progress. Vandalism and theft of the service delivery infrastructure affect all areas of human activities, including the now major concern of water scarcity. Honorable members, there's no doubt that the government is doing everything possible to ensure that South Africans have access to safe and clean water. The Honorable President of this country announced a 63.7 million wastewater infrastructure refurbishment project, and through the National Infrastructure Plan, 1 trillion has been set aside towards a new infrastructure of water supply, energy, transport, sanitation, and education. The bilateral agreement of Lesotho Highlands Water Project, which is sure to improve regional economy, further demonstrate that government is committed towards development. Honorable Chair, the primary target is usually substations, transformers, utility lines, and underground cabling. Vandalism and theft of electrical equipment at electrical substation is not only catastrophic for thieves, but also for the electricity maintenance staff who routinely service these disrupted or unstable power environments. The challenge of criminal activities of cable theft and vandalism as a result are not necessarily geographically bound, but pervade all main cities in South Africa, owing to the multiple challenges of urban growth like surging unemployment, abject poverty and squalor, increasing inequalities, and perceived social deprivation. As such, the city of Cape Town has also been adversely affected by these social ills. The evidence points in the direction of the criticality of cable theft problem in majority cities in South Africa. It's not only African country currently plagued by vandalism of power cables. Opportunistic thieves and well-organized international syndicates who sell these copper cables to lucrative markets are responsible for these crimes, contributing to the hefty cost that the city could do with. The City of Cape Town reports that Metal Theft Unit has made more than 50 arrests in connection with cable theft in the past 12 months. This evidence points in the direction of the criticality of cable theft problem in major cities in South Africa. South Africa is today witnessing more and more violent protests relating to government non-provision of some basic services. As a result, in many of these picket stated property often get vandalized. Whether this act resembles the community's way of showing their frustration and stress or just bad behavior and criminal act remains to be investigated. For an example, often during the protest, protesters burn tires and barricade roads, hence damaging the texture of the tarred road. Moreover, as this protest evolves, community halls, community libraries, schools, road signs, and government offices get burned, stoned, and vandalized in all possible ways. Although government often deploy police officials to control and prevent vandalism during protest, often involvement of police wasn't the situation, as we had seen in the past communities, members being killed in fights that erupt between police and the community. For an example, in my province, in my Mututlung Madibeng local municipality. As a result, government strongly condemned the actions and vows that culprits will be sent to jail. However, these efforts are spilled and defeated through criminal conduct that seeks to sabotage our achievement thus far. Some steal and damage with an intent to make our people lose trust in the government, seeking to settle political score. Our infrastructure is threatened. This is experienced across all provinces, and the Northwest, as I said, is not exempted from this crisis. We are experiencing theft of valves and copper transformers, which has a direct bearing on water supply and electricity, as the MEC has said. This has resulted in protests in areas of Madibeng, as I said, Bloemhof, and other devastating, leading to fatalities, which we cannot afford. The damage caused by this criminal act is highly destructive, seeing that our communities are also used through mob psychology. The burning of schools, destroying properties, torching of
I find it very painful to say that your 4 minutes is up.
Okay. Yeah, in conclusion, I agree. In conclusion, Deputy Chair, I'll say that I should agree with government that there should be measures to actually fight these horrible crimes. A campaign program that are there should be campaign programs that are to be taken to the community. that are to instill the attitudes of ownership and belonging. This is sure to succeed through partnership with the relevant stakeholders and those that have the interest of the communities at heart. Let us invest in patriotism, where people value that which belong to them and preserve the infrastructure. We are to build peaceful societies with respect of the rule of law. Ka mafoko ao ke a leboga.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. May I call on Honorable Mikalakis to continue the debate?
Honourable Deputy Chairperson, Honourable Minister and Deputy Minister, members present. Much has been said about the consequences of vandalism and theft of service delivery infrastructure in our municipalities. And we all agree that the vandalism, destruction and theft of this infrastructure is unacceptable and should be ended without delay. It should have been prevented long ago. It's most certainly not a recent occurrence. Considering the hundreds of millions of rands it is costing the South African public, how it affects the safety and health of our public. This is a debate that took too long to come to this House. What is more, it's only a government with absolutely no vision that will wait for the economic heart of this country to be left without water for weeks before it calls for a debate on the cause of the problem, only to blame everyone but themselves. Infrastructure theft and vandalism is not a root cause of service delivery problems. It's the result of a lack of vision, as always, on the part of this government, which contributes to the already failing poor service delivery. The question we should ask ourselves is, do we have a reactionary debate, or do we have viable solutions to minimize or prevent what is foreseeable and manage those that are not? The DA has always advocated for a whole-of-society approach, involving individuals and communities in their own development. Only if the public and government work in partnership and take responsibility are we able to do so. As the DA demonstrated when it had its own water crisis in the Western Cape's West Coast, backup and risk management plans can have an enormous effect on preventing crises that can potentially be disastrous. The partnership between the Western Cape government and Metro Rail to effectively fight against crime is another example. And the advocacy from the City of Cape Town to involve the community to report faults, complaints and vandalism, giving everyone responsibility against an issue entrenched with society. The control of these crimes are within the government's grasp. It's unfortunate that some solutions, nay, mere suggestions, are only being brought forward at this late stage from national government. In the medium-term budget policy statement for 2014-15, the final adjusted allocation for the two primary VIP protection units under the SAPS was increased to a combined budget of over 1.8 billion rand at the expense of the SAPS detectives allocation. This tells us that the ANC is more concerned with protecting its politicians than infrastructure, let alone the South African people. Speaking of protecting politicians, at a cost of 265 million rand a year, according to the Honourable Deputy Minister, it's like upgrading the President's fortress year after year after year. And, like in that instance, government doesn't seem over-eager to turn suggestions into action. What the Honourable Deputy Minister said was, to say the least, opaque. Instead of presenting solutions, he keeps himself terribly busy running the National Department of Suggestions. Let this debate not become a smokescreen or another talk shop to address the major issues. We need effective leadership, proactive solutions, and governments that take responsibility for what happens in their jurisdiction. Honourable Mohapi, the ANC can take a leaf out of the DA's approach to vandalism and theft of service delivery infrastructure in South Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I shall now call the Honourable Member Tiwana.
Thank you. Honorable Deputy Chairperson of the NSOP in absence, Minister of the Office of the President, Minister of Culture, Deputy Minister in present, MEC of our provinces, Chief Whip of the NSOP, permanent members of NSOP, Zikumkani nenkosi zezwelethu, distinguished guests and members of the media, good afternoon. I greet you all in the love of this glorious movement, African National Congress, the oldest liberation movement in Africa, an organization which is 102 years in existence. I am honored to be given this opportunity in my lifetime to represent this noble organization in this house. The cornerstone of the good behavior is seen and judged by the society is discipline, respect, and being ethical. This proves an answer to those who have been and still concerned of what is the trends, and we need to weave together and create a cloth of mortality that develops an individual and develops the collective human relations to a common public protection of our infrastructure. The current level of vandalism, destruction, and theft of state properties and resources is a serious concern that has a negative impact in the economy of our country. In order, Chairperson, to dismantle this vandalism and destruction and theft, we need to have a comprehensive and appropriate strategy. We need to deal with the root cause and come up with a possible remedial action. Today, the DA is standing up because they've got a Christian name, say DA. Their original name was National Party, and they were part of destroying us. After 1994, they created another name.
There's a point of order, Honorable Wana. Honorable Faber.
Point of order, the only National Party member I know is Honorable De Beer, and he's in the ANC, not one of us.
Okay, continue, Honorable Member.
And let us look at the behavior and the attitude of the state officials. Their attitude, state official, requires an intensive interrogation and the manner in which they behave in the offices. Today, the ANC is leading the governance. Every day, there's a source that is destroying the organization. And even those people are perpetrating Nicodemously our masses. Chairperson, let me quote Fidel Castro in his book, page 343. When he was analyzing his country around the enemies who were destroying Cuba, he said, we must have our feet solemnly on the ground without ever sacrificing, and the greatest reality of our principles. Why I'm quoting this? Within the democracy, Chairperson, there are enemies of our democracy, and we are aware that our organization, which is leading in governance, has an open door policy. And all those policies are in place, and we are transparent to everybody. Secondly, today, why I'm quoting this for the second point, today, we are highly filtrated, and our masses are filtrated by the opposition and the minorities. And they are telling lies to our masses as if they can deliver to their needs. Tell no lies. There are two types of vandalism and destruction. One is a criminal element. Other one is a revolt around the state. That means we are highly infiltrated, and all of these elements are trying to destroy this organization. Each challenge requires a systematic approach and analyze and come up with remedial actions. the type of criminal element in this case, the perpetrators, at some stage you can analyze, are within us in the governance. Other perpetrators are outside the governance, but their common goal is make a deterioration in our governance. Secondly, when I'm saying this, Chairperson, there's this issue of drug, and the people who are dealing with drug are sophisticated criminals, and all of them are aiming to destroy our own country. Cry, the beloved country. This must be stopped. Let me get to this issue, that the issue of vandalism, secondly, in terms of service delivery. These minority parties are going to the masses and filtrate them and demonstrate as if our own has got no capacity. But the capacity we had, we approved them on the 7th of May, that 62% voted for the African National Congress. Theft has become a virus, and the manner in which is affecting everybody. South African police services cannot afford to fight this challenge alone. That's why the leading party has put in place common community police forums, constituencies, local municipalities, and ward councillors, so that all of us we can work together and try to sketch this issue. The government has its strength because it has managed to fight the fundraisers of poverty. And the statistics can test on that. 3.6 million people have been elevated from poverty. Let me come, Chairperson, with the recommendation. The government needs to review its communication strategy and the organs of society, including the business. Secondly, our institutions, local government, provincial government, and nationally, must have a program of going back to the people, because this government is for the people, and make educational knowledge, educate our people that they must know whatever has been put in place by the government belongs to them. Lastly, we must try and persuade as government that this issue of incorporating in the curriculum, that the students must be at an early stage, gain the morale and gain the knowledge of where we are coming from as ANC, so that at school level, they must know the history of where we are coming from. Okugqibela ke bantu bezwe lethu. Mandithi apha ezinkosini zezwe lethu, niyayazi apho ndisuka khona iinkosi neekumkani zethu. Namhlanje xa ndima apha, ndithi thathani inxaxheba zinkosi neekumkani zezwe lethu nokujonga abantu abokufika kwindawo endihlala kuzo, ngoba nabo banayo inxaxheba yodistroya i-infrastructure esinayo. Ndibhekisa kuni ke bantwana begazi. Make ndiqale ndibulele kuwe uArthambo. Umsebenzi omkhulu owenzileyo xa abathe abenzi bobubi batshabalalisa istatyu sakho, because wena uhlala nathi. Amathambo akho aye ashukuma, babe abantu ebebedestroy istatyu sakho namhlanje babanjiwe. Kuyo yonke lento ANC ijongene nayo bantu bakuthi, sinonyaka ke esiyazi into ba i-opposition ne-minor parties zijonge ku 2016. Yena u-ANC noMadiba noThambo bathi mandithi kuni, i-ANC zawuliwina unyulo ngo-2016. Vumani bo.
Thank you, Honorable Member Wana. Honorable Member Smith, may you please sit? Which point
Thank
of
you,
order, Honorable Member? Because the Honorable Member is finished with the debate.
Chairperson,
Yes.
I did not hear that the Honorable Member extract her words to to say that the original name of the Democratic Alliance is the National Party, which is absolutely misleading, and it is false because the original name of the Democratic Alliance is the Progressive Party.
Okay, Honorable Smith, what you are not supposed to do is to respond to the debate of the Honorable Member. So that is not a point of order. May I please continue with him?
Honorable Chairperson, I totally disagree on that. It is clear in the rules of this House that a member may not deliberately mislead this House by presenting false information. So I'm asking for your ruling on that, please.
Okay, anyhow, the matter was raised by Honorable Faber, and Honorable Faber raised it in the form of responding to the members' debate. Anyhow, let me give Honorable Zimande, he wants to say something.
On a point of order, Chair, Democratic Alliance was formed. One of the components was the National Party, Chair, NNP. So, I said that, Chair, and that as a presiding officer, I can go and check the record of this Parliament when the Democratic Alliance was formed.
Honorable Zimande, please sit. Honorable members, I'm now going to debate this to close the matter. We continue with the debate. I shall now call the Honorable Member SPD Skozana. And the other thing, Honorable Members, you are allowed to converse, but please make sure that when you exchange the thoughts, we don't hear what you are saying. Please. Okay, Honorable Grant, it's your time.
Honourable Deputy Chair of the NCOP, Honourable Ministers, Deputy Minister, MECs, Honourable Members, distinguished guests, all protocol observed. It will come as no surprise to this House in my partial capacity as Minister of Transport and the Public Works in the Western Cape. The focus of my contribution is the impact of vandalism on aspects of public transport, largely in this province. In this regard, there is surely no need to remind this House of the extent to which, given South Africa's extensive history of apartheid spatial planning, hundreds of thousands of people are still faced daily with the daunting distances to cover to work and back in order to be able to participate in the economy. In the public service space, the incapacitation of any one of the modes of transport available, rail, bus, or taxi, places huge pressures on the others, pressures which result in significant losses to the economy, disruption to families, and sometimes violence. On the 30th of July this year, Metro Rail infrastructure experienced vicious attacks by criminals who had deliberately set out to sabotage the service. Their deplorable actions at the time adversely affected the train service between Nyanga and Khayelitsha/Chris Hani and Kapteins Klip Mitchell's Plain. These vandals left tens of thousands of commuters without the usual means of getting to their various destinations. We immediately came together as public transport stakeholders in condemning such acts and worked in unison to lessen the already disastrous effects that these acts had on commuters. Metro Rail made available 2.5 million rands in repairs upon inspection. They deployed buses to affected areas and issued a 50,000 rand reward for bringing these criminals to justice. Golden Arrow bus services, My City and the minibus taxi industry also came out in full support and did all they could to ensure that commuters got to work and arrived home safely. So that is what we did. More recently, Metro Rail's ability to deliver on its essential mandate was once again threatened when a suspected arsonist damaged 19 carriages, causing millions of rands in damage.
A total of 35 carriages in 8 incidents have either been lost or damaged as a result of fire and arson in 2014 alone. These acts, which have been described as deliberate sabotage, are acts against the state by criminal elements behaving with impunity. Actions such as these must carry severe consequences that send a clear message to the perpetrators that we as South Africans will not tolerate such a direct threat to the livelihoods of ordinary citizens who rely heavily on public transport to provide a decent life for themselves and their children. The thousands of rail commuters in this province cannot continue to be held ransom by the actions of a few criminals that have a brazen disregard for the law and the needs of others. The perpetrators of these crimes must face the full might of the law, and we continue to support SAP's efforts to ensure that this happens. Nationally, this type of vandalism presents a bleak picture. According to Prasa Rail CEO Morphy, the company has paid out 382 million over the past 3 years as a result of theft and vandalism nationally. With the more recent arson attacks set to push this number well over 400 million. This amount includes direct replacement costs as well as indirect costs, such as the provision of alternative transportation and increased insurance premiums. These are amounts that should be directed at service improvement, the purchase of more much-needed train sets, and better onboard security for commuters. My department continues to work closely with Metro Rail on a number of issues related to their service and has provided funding to support their efforts in addressing security issues at some of their stations through our 4 million rand scramblers and the high mast lighting projects. This project saw the deployment of 25 scrambler bikes and 12 high mast lights at priority areas and stations, all in a bid to improve security and to assist Metro Rail to protect their crucial assets better. This investment has increased the tactical cable theft intervention unit's capacity to respond to threats at identified hotspots. We will continue to provide such assistance where possible, in keeping with our objective to provide safe and reliable public transport in the province. The high securitization of Metro's key corridors and depots with fencing, alarms, and CCT surveillance is now imminent and accounts for a large portion of the 483 million allocated over the next 2 years to implement a comprehensive asset protection program. This will undoubtedly go a long way in protecting the assets that allow Metro Rail to carry out their key passenger transportation function. The frequency of these incidents, the escalating costs, and the disastrous impact that they have on the economy cannot be tackled by Metro Rail alone. Vandalism and theft of state assets have become a pressing societal issue that requires urgent intervention by government and communities. Decisive action, investigation, and apprehending by the SAPs, followed by deterring consequences being imposed by our criminal justice system. These elements of criminality must not be allowed to flourish unchecked. We as a country simply cannot afford it. We must send a clear message to these criminal elements that crime in general, and particularly of this nature, does not pay. We must treat acts of vandalism and theft of delivery infrastructure with the vigor that they deserve. We must continue to see arrests for reported incidents so as to deter others in the wake of what is now a crisis. Urgent steps must also be taken by Metro Rail to decrease their vulnerability to the crippling vandalism and theft. Smarter security interventions must be implemented to protect their most critical assets, like signal cables, train sets, and depot yards. It is unthinkable that the acts of a select few can be allowed to threaten the livelihoods of thousands of people. It is incumbent upon all of us to act, and to act now. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I shall now call Honorable SPD Skosana.
Honorable Deputy Chair in absentia, Minister Khatib and Minister Godan, Honorable MECs present here today, Deputy Minister Nel, Honorable members of the NCOP, friends and comrades. In May 1992, in our efforts to build a new South Africa based on new values of non-racial, non-sexist, and crafting a prosperous nation, the ANC produced one of its milestone founding policy framework called Ready to Govern. In our Ready to Govern document, we noted that as we restructure government, we ought to reshape and restore public confidence to a new democratic institution. This was necessary to make a starting point because our people everywhere in the country have been engaged in intense struggles against apartheid government, struggles which were based on various issues affecting their daily lives, such as housing, health, transport, water, and electricity provision. Consequently, there was a widespread rejection of the government of the past over issues of corruption, racial exclusion, and alienation of the majority from the mainstream of economy. Now we're celebrating 20 years of freedom. The country is free. Political institutions are open for all. People have rights for political participation, including rights for peaceful demonstrations and assembly. But a new phenomena has crept in to undermine and distort the success of our freedom, the phenomena of destroying community infrastructure when frustrated by lack of one service or another. It is amazing that due to illegal protest, which sometimes turn violent and disruptive, a new culture has emerged in our society where vandalism, destruction of infrastructure, and theft is a daily occurrence under the disguise of service delivery protest. Thugs masquerading as protesters have become peacetime heroes by inculcating the culture of looting and destroying public property in our communities. Opportunists have even formed bogus political parties and declared them protest movements due to how the situation has become vulnerable. But we ought to stop lamenting as communities, honorable members. We need to reclaim our streets. We need to restore communities' claim of owning the public properties built through their own taxes. We need to make this resounding message clear to communities that destroying public amenities and infrastructure is tantamount to destroying your own house. In the heart of such a campaign should be the inculcating the culture in our society that is no government infrastructure, but there is people's infrastructure. Well, honorable members, in our province, we have a practical evidence that indeed thugs and pseudo-political concern groups have in many instances abused genuine issues of the people to vandalize public properties. Today, many communities have no clinics, no schools, and municipal offices due to violent destructions and theft. Today, we even suffer electricity shortages and water due to criminals stealing electricity cables designed to deliver services to communities. The country must stand up and speak against vandalism and destruction of public infrastructure. Serious punitive measures must be developed to deal with any individual who destroys and steals public service delivery properties. We stand up and say enough is enough as a nation, like we did during apartheid. We must be prepared to root out these destructive people in the society who have turned our community to safe havens for theft, destruction of public infrastructure and amenities. Let's name and shame all those who use community concerns to destroy what has been built for communities to receive services. Honorable members, we have a very insecure opposition leadership at the moment. Everything said that might be constructive said without sycophantic is seen as an attack on the opposition leadership. The larger mentality sets in and imaginary enemies are set out. Well, the icon of our nation, of our world, once said that we don't have to be oversensitive, because that will be a grave mistake in all the things that we do. If you look at what is happening in our communities, a number of our people, they have turned out in numbers in destroying some of these amenities because they see themselves as part of the opposition, and they want to show that the opposition is much stronger. And one wonders, where do they get such a courage? Honorable members, I think the time has come that we must begin to shame some of these opposition parties in our communities who are supporting these other organizations who are mushrooming where we live. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I will now call Honorable LPM Zimande.
I thank you, House Chairperson. The watch shows me 100 minutes. Yeah. Honorable House Chair, Ministers and Deputy Ministers, members, compatriots, ladies and gentlemen, we tried as the African National Congress throughout the debate to be responsible enough to ensure that we want a unified voice out to our people. That vandalism, theft, and destruction of infrastructure is criminal and is unacceptable. But despite that message we tried to put across, we are forced again and again to play political football, which is started by Honorable Julius, where he selectively highlighted Gauteng on issues of water or pumps that were faulty, forgetting a recent situation here in where the spillage, sewer spillage went to the lagoon now recently. And he didn't say it because they want to continuously live in this cocoon of thinking that Western Cape is some island somewhere outside South Africa. And we believe that what happens in the Western Cape is what happens nationally, as we've been putting it across here in our debate as speakers from provinces and speakers from the African National Congress. Now, the Honorable Grant, at least it showed that there's a better understanding in terms of the role you need to play. But just to remind you as well, in case the claim is made politically to be suiting the same politics of being in the Western Cape and being in separate outside South Africa, that PRASA did the same thing in Tshwane when the trains were attacked, when vandalism happened in Tshwane, in Eguruleni. Therefore, it's not a special treat by the DA government in the Western Cape. Just to put that on record, in case this notion and the fallacy of living in some kind of a paradise somewhere outside South Africa. Now, we are told, Honorable Makalakis, that the African National Congress has no vision. And consistently and perpetually, we make reference to our own documents that guides us. I will start. I'll list them. I have them here. I'll list them. First, the Charter, the Freedom Charter. It helped you for a consensus we reached by 1994 to say everybody who live in South Africa belong here, and the South Africa belongs to them too. Now, all our programs are informed by that we want to fight underdevelopment, we want to fight inequality, we want to fight poverty. The infrastructure we are rolling out, which is today, Honorable Makalakis, as you quoted the MTSF, our infrastructure programs are now worth over R1 trillion, for a record. And therefore, quoting a little corner somewhere in the MTSF that suits the debate you are making cannot be true. Our programs for infrastructure are phenomenal, massive. That's for the record. Now, Honorable Matebos, your party continues to preach and identify itself under this anarchism and ungovernability. That's its principle and vision. Now, you then accuse security, police for helping when you go and lead and infiltrate communities, as Honorable Wana was saying here, saying to people they must revolt, they must do this, they must be ungovernable. You continuously quote us, Marikana, where you went and messed. Now we have to come back and help you to make sure that there's delivery as we do, as the programs talk to themselves. Now, the ministers of police and security have been coming here to the House for a record to answer questions around the issue of how do they deal with public protest and how much government is investing on public order police unit to make sure that incidences that we all deplore, incidences of unwarranted violence by the police to the citizens are witnessed. And therefore, it doesn't make sense to come and argue a point that we have answers to, and courtesy of the Ready to Govern documents, another second document, which says our approach, our vision of the security, of peace and security in the country is a new approach that puts civilians as superior in security. And that runs through the national development plans. We are saying there is one of the outcomes. South Africans must feel and be safe. It's there in the National Development Plan. Now, so if you don't know the vision, I've just outlined a few. And from a few documents. There is a lot that I can take you through. But political education, we can do it for the opposition as well. Courtesy of the chief whip, I guess. Now, we are saying as the African National Congress, we deplore in agreement with our speakers that participated here constructively to advise and share their views, to educate our communities and to urge our communities to join hands, to collaborate with government, which is their government, to ensure that they protect, that they love their infrastructure, to ensure that they save money for government to do more things for them. We also welcome, as the African National Congress, the program of action outlined earlier on by the Deputy Minister here, which include already action where a working group is formed. What else do you need, Honorable Julius, when you say we're doing nothing? A working group, that's not a talk. A working group, it's a structure. It's not a wish, as you said, it's a talk shop. That's not a talk shop. A working group, it's a structure that is empowered, that is sitting to drive a program or to develop a plan and a program of action that will start to tackle the matter. To remind you, he said here before us that that working group is a collaborative group of deputy ministers, including those of security and that of justice and correctional service. So what more do you need? People will go to jail. People will face court. People will be arrested. That's the action we are taking. So as the African National Congress, we say in closing, Honorable House Chair, that our work doesn't end with the laments that we've heard here, but it goes further, that we will go out as the African National Congress, commanded indeed since 1952, our volunteer-in-chief, to go talk to our volunteers to make sure that they dirty their hands, to make sure that communities are convinced to own, as the RDP document says, another document to quote you, which urges people to love and own their own development that their government is bringing. Therefore, as the African National Congress, we will go out and mobilize people against this vandalism, theft, and the destruction of properties. We will urge them continuously, as we did when we undertook the National Democratic Revolution, to say, with it comes sacrifices as well. We've heard here, comes with it responsibilities and different roles to play. The state must be allowed to play its role to make sure that it protects everybody, it protects property, to make sure that it delivers according to its mandate.
Your time is up.
I thank you, Honorable House Chair. 100 minutes.
Honorable Deputy Minister.
House Chairperson, thank you very much. I'd like to start off by, again, thanking the leadership of the Council for putting this debate onto the agenda. I think it comes at a very timeous moment. It's also not the first time that either the Council or the Assembly and its committees have engaged with this very important issue. I think this is one of those issues that should unite us as South Africans. It's not an issue that should divide us. And in that regard, I would like to thank the Honourable Grant for what I thought was an extremely thoughtful, well-considered input in which he clearly and unambiguously denounced any form of theft, of vandalism of our public infrastructure. Public infrastructure which knows no party affiliation. There's no cable, there's no bridge, there's no pylon that has a party membership card. That infrastructure is there to serve all of us. And I think furthermore, the Honourable Grant highlighted in practical terms concrete steps that he is taking, working together with national government, with the parastatal sector, with the private sector. And I think that is commendable. I think what is also encouraging is that in his input, he referred to one of the big challenges that we face as a nation, and that is the question of transforming our apartheid spatial legacy. Again, something that should unite us, not divide us. So, and I think that spirit of unity is something that should pervade our work in the way that the African National Congress throughout its history has shown a willingness, has led. And if we go back to the Freedom Charter and the Congress of the People that adopted that Freedom Charter, we need to remember that the ANC at the height of apartheid oppression extended a hand of friendship and collaboration to those who were at the forefront of formulating and implementing apartheid. The National Party was invited to the Congress of the People. The Liberal Party was invited to the Congress of the People. Regrettably, they turned down that invitation and did not participate. But throughout the course of fighting against apartheid, we've always sought to create the broadest possible unity around those core demands that we believed would take our country forward. So that when 1994 came, we were ready, because we had already adopted Ready to Govern, which made it possible also to, working together with a wide range of forces, to formulate the Reconstruction and Development Program. That program has been successfully implemented. It's led to millions of houses being built, to houses being electrified, to water and sanitation being provided, to thousands of kilometers of roads being built and tarred. So we have made progress as a nation, and we've made that progress on the basis of uniting. But as we've gone about implementing those programs, we've also learned lessons. We've learned that even the best conceived plans would have shortcomings and challenges. And maybe in the spirit of that great son of our continent, Amilcar Cabral, who said, "Hide nothing from the masses of our people, tell no lies, expose lies where they are told, mask no difficulties, mistakes, failures, claim no easy victories." So that is why we've always been willing as the ANC to come to the people and say, these are the difficulties that we face. This is what we propose to do.
Please conclude, Honorable
Unite
Minister.
with us, where we've engaged in action. Where we've succeeded with the people. Where we failed, we haven't hesitated to go back to the people and to explain what the difficulties were and what changes in approach might be necessary. And I think that is what we did, what we are doing and will continue to do on this very difficult issue of the theft and the vandalism of our public infrastructure. We will be open about both our successes as well as the difficulties, and we will work together with everyone who has constructive proposals to make. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. That concludes the debate on vandalism and theft of service delivery. Honorable members, I have received a request that Minister would like to make a statement on management performance assessment for 2013. I now call Minister to address the House.
Thank you, House Chair. Minister Gordon, Deputy Ministers Nel Manamela, MECs, honorable members. Subsequent to the national general elections that were held on the 7th of May 2014, the National Planning Commission and the former Department of Performance Monitoring and Evaluation merged to form a new Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation. The aim of this reorganization is to give effect to the commitment to institutionalize long-term planning within the government. The intention is to create a seamless value chain between planning, monitoring, and evaluation related to the National Development Plan in one institution in order to ensure effective implementation. Honorable members, one of the key goals of the National Development Plan is to build a capable developmental state and to forge a disciplined, people-centered and professional public service. The NDP stresses that building that capacity of the state is a prerequisite for successful implementation of all government policies. A capable and a professional public service is one which is characterized by high-quality management services and practices which are required in order to ensure that all departments are run effectively and efficiently, and that we do the basics right. To give effect to all these efforts of doing the basics right, we must continue to implement the Management Performance Assessment Tool, or MPAT, which is a tool to manage and to monitor management practices in both national and provincial departments. This tool was developed jointly with the Department of Public Service and Administration, the National Treasury, the offices of premiers, the Auditor General, as well as the Public Service Commission. MPAD provides, therefore, a holistic view of management performance and draws on data from other agencies, such as the Auditor General, as secondary sources. It is based on international good practice, drawing on the experience of other countries such as Canada, Kenya, Russia, India, as well as New Zealand. We developed this MPAT tool because weaknesses in management and administration are common and are leading to poor service delivery, the topic that we've just ended now. For an example, shortages of medicines and other supplies that have been reported in public health facilities in some provinces are usually caused by weaknesses in supply chain management. In addition, our monitoring of payment of suppliers within 30 days has led us to the conclusion that weaknesses in management practices are the most common cause of failure to supply suppliers within 30 days. Improved management practices are therefore necessary to improve quality service delivery. It is important, honorable members, to note that MPAT does not measure all aspects of the performance of any government department. It only measures whether things are being done in the right way. It does not measure whether the right outcomes are being achieved in totality. Department must therefore also be assessed in terms of progress against priority outcomes that are contained in the NDP as well as in the medium-term strategic framework, and their performance targets in the strategic and annual performance plans in order to determine if they are indeed doing the right things. We have also developed a similar tool for application within the local government sphere in collaboration with the Department of Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs, National Treasury, SALGA, the Office of the Auditor General, provincial departments that are responsible for local government, and key sector departments such as water, sanitation, energy, and the environment. We have just completed a pilot implementation phase of our municipal assessment tool in 12 municipalities. We are now in a process of expanding its implementation in partnership with the national and provincial departments of cooperative governance. MPAT is not simply an external audit of management practices. It includes a very strong element of self-assessment, learning, as well as improvement. The MPAT assessment process is designed to build internal monitoring and self-evaluation capacity in all government departments. This process requires a head of the department and senior management to conduct a self-assessment against 31 key management standards and provide the necessary evidence to support their own assessment. The 31 management standards cover areas of management related to human resource management and development, financial management, supply chain management, procurement, strategic management, governance, and accountability. These self-assessments are then subjected to peer moderation where senior public service with extensive experience in the key performance areas covered by the standards evaluate this self-assessment against evidence provided. For each standard, departments are assessed at level 1, 2, 3, and 4. If a department scores at level 1 for a particular standard, that means that that department is not compliant with the legal prescripts in that area, such as treasury regulations or the public service regulations. If a department scores at level 2, it means that the department is partially compliant with legal prescripts, and level 3 means full compliance with the legal prescripts. A department operating at level 4 for a particular standard is not only fully compliant with the legal prescripts, but is also working very smartly. For example, for the standard related to service delivery improvement, a department at level 3 has an approved service charter, service standards, and service delivery improvement plan, but a department operating at level 4 also regularly measures and monitors whether or not it is complying with all its own service delivery standards and methods, and management considers monitoring reports against its service delivery standards and uses these to inform improvements to business processes in that particular department. Therefore, this MPET process is different to an audit in that it assesses whether or not departments are using data to improve their own performance. Honorable members, the results of these assessments provide a very frank and honest analysis of the strengths, of the weaknesses in management. We are aiming to encourage continuous incremental improvement over time. In addition, policy reviews by policy departments at the center of the administration will be undertaken to understand why many departments do not comply with some of their own standards. The Department of Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation has successfully rolled out 3 cycles of MPET since 2011. In the latter 2 years, there has been 100% participation by provincial and national departments. This trend in participation is indicative of departments' willingness to enhance their management practices, thereby ultimately creating an enabling environment for service delivery improvements. MPET appears to be having a very positive impact. Noted improvements are evident when comparing the 2013 MPET results for national and provincial departments to the 2012 results across most departments and across most of the management standards. In some areas of management, however, there has not been significant improvement. The scores for the standards related to human resource management and development are particularly weak. Scores are also relatively weak for the standards related to service delivery improvement, fraud prevention, management of diversity, payment of suppliers, unauthorized, wasteful, and fruitless expenditure. The 2013 results show that in all the standards that were monitored, we were able to identify some departments that are operating at level 4. Together with the University of Witwatersrand School of Governance, these good practices have been documented as case studies which had been shared with all departments to inform initiatives for improvement. The case studies show that it is possible for all government departments to operate at level 4 across all standards measured through this MPET. For an example, the case studies show that it is indeed possible to pay all suppliers within 30 days and to finalize disciplinary cases within 90 days. We are currently arranging a series of workshops for the departments which scored at level 4 in the various standards to share their experiences with departments which scored at level 1 and 2. Honorable members, the MPAT report is therefore intended to assist the executive and administrative leadership of a department to identify areas of weaknesses in their management practices and to develop improvement plans. The MPAT report is also a very useful tool for Parliament and provincial legislatures to inform their oversight work. Parliamentary committees, therefore, should call on departments to account for their MPAT scores and should request departments to present their improvement plans and progress in implementing these improvements. This will undoubtedly increase the impact of MPAT. So this is your role. In conclusion, it is only when the majority of departments are operating at level 4 that we will be able to ensure that the conditions are in place to create a capable state, which is a prerequisite to achieving the outcomes not only of the medium-term strategic framework, but of the National Development Plan. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Honorable Labuskakan, it's your time.
Honourable Deputy Chair, Honourable Deputy Minister and fellow members, the Democratic Alliance already welcomed the implementation of the Management Performance Assessment tool, the MPAT, in October 2011. If done properly, the MPAT should align budget, financial management, human resources management, performance management and governance. Therefore, we strongly agree that an accountable and transparent government should have a system like the MPAT. It is also inevitable that the process of monitoring management practices will raise awareness of what should be done and what is not being done, as well as identify critical management practices that improve practice and government performance. In focusing on the 2013 MPAT report, MPAT's 4 key performance areas, the following findings must be mentioned. KPA 1 strategic management indicates 90% compliance for strategic plans being in place, but 43% of departments were below level 3 on annual performance planning. There seems to be a gap between planning and implementation. A concerning and alarming finding is that a sectoral analysis indicates that the departments of justice, education and social services deteriorated in this field. KPA 2, governance and accountability, shows an improvement in this KPA except for service delivery and improvement of plans, with a 70% non-compliant and a fraud prevention of only 64%. A possible factor contributing to these findings is the fact that the Department of Public Service and Administration requires departments to submit plans, but does not follow up on the assessment implementation. The questions to be answered are: does policy implementation lead to improved service delivery? And secondly, does the ANC government have the political will and leadership to improve service delivery and effective prevention of fraud? KPA 3, human resource management, seems to be the government's intensive care patient. The score for human resource management increased from only a 2 in 2011 to a 2.25 in 2013. Of great concern is that diversity management remains very low over the last 2 assessments, with more than 75% of departments scoring only level 1. Financial management, the 4th one, compliance of only 56% is not just a cause for concern, it's downright unacceptable. The fact that 87% of departments are not complying with payment in 30 days needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency.
Honourable Member, your time is expired.
It's impossible.
I shall now call the Honorable Member Vodwa.
Allow me first and foremost to acknowledge the presence of our supreme forces. Irrespective of whatever your perceptions might be, I greet all of you with Assalamu alaikum. Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Minister, Honorable Deputy Ministers, Honorable MECs still present, Honorable Members. We have just listened to a statement about the management performance assessments, a key component of our governance framework that should ideally help us identify the gaps and put forward corrective measures in our quest to make South Africa a better place for all its people. But as clearly shown by the recent revelations of the Auditor General, the South African government is not the listening type. Government department after government department, public entity after public entity, and we see this picture continuing throughout. We have seen a picture painted of state institutions and officials ignoring laws and regulations in pursuit of corrupt activities, and all this they do with such scant impunity. This situation provides the basis for the very counter-revolutionary measures referred to earlier in the session. And as a result of this, we see our people all over the country are still forced to use pit latrines and open toilets. Our kids go to schools that do not have books in many instances. Our old and sickly fellow citizens go to hospitals that have little or no medication and poorly trained personnel. We have been discussing this afternoon about vandalism in the public sector and vandalism of infrastructure. Honorable members, the biggest vandalism and theft that is taking place by our very own people that are supposed to be managing over this infrastructure. This is a very sad indictment indeed. Honorable Deputy Chair, Honorable Deputy Ministers, Minister and Honorable Deputy Minister, accountability must be across the board, and to begin at the top would filter down in a manner that would not only set the best example, but would also help to eradicate the widespread poor and mismanagement that is taking place in the departments, and also the associated corruption that is taking place. All knowledge is vain, save when there is work. And training our personnel and then placing them in these institutes where they do not work in the manner
Honourable Member Vodo,
do you want me
you
to
have
finish?
exhausted your 3 minutes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I shall now call Honourable J.B. Pakis.
Honorable Deputy Chair, Chair, on behalf of the ANC, we want to welcome the executive statement made by the Minister. And as the ANC, we want to, we are the exponents of the aspirations of our people and their social needs. And this tool serves as a powerful device developed by the ANC to assist our parliament and provincial legislatures to fulfill their constitutional mandate and have a reliable data and information which must empower us on certain policy interventions. This is a tool also intended to ensure that we translate the commitment that government departments make into effective and efficient outcomes that must impact on the lives of ordinary people. And We want to use this again as ANC government to develop the culture of performance and the culture of service to our people. It is also encouraging to note that there are at least some departments that have managed to accomplish level 4, and we want to congratulate those departments. And also to say, whatever that we are doing in our public service and the progress that we are making should assist us as representatives of the masses on the ground to rough up and firm up our oversight work. And our work that is happening and taking place in our public service its impact must pervade on the ground and translate into the quality life of our people. And Honorable Chairperson, as the ANC want to wholeheartedly welcome the results of 2012-2013 assessment, which shows that some departments are making a greater progress. We thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Burgess. The Honorable Minister.
Thank you, House Chair. Let me take this opportunity of thanking all the members who participated in this discussion. It does appear that all political parties are in agreement and welcome the MPAT. Thank you very much for the support. Is there a gap between planning and implementation? That's precisely why we developed this MPAT, because we have nothing to hide as the ANC government, because we are deeply committed in improving service delivery for the people of South Africa. It is only when we're able to identify these weaknesses that we can be able to improve service for the benefit of all the people of South Africa, regardless of their political affiliation. I've indicated it is your role as lawmakers to demand these reports and hold all government departments without any exception to be accountable to you as the lawmakers. I do know that the committee in the National Assembly already are beginning to call all those departments that were below level 3 in order to account whether the steps and measures that have been recommended are in place in order to improve service delivery. So the political will, ma'am, is there. We didn't need anybody to tell us. That is why from 2009, the president is the first president in the history of the Republic of South Africa to have a department called Performance Monitoring and Evaluation. EFF, we've just spoken about vandalism. I was here when it's being spoken. I do understand that this is not a party political matter, but it is a matter that involves everybody. So our responsibility, whether EFF or not, is to put your shoulder into the wheel to drive that we should not have corruption in South Africa. But the ANC government has never hesitated. Whenever corruption rears its ugly head, we chop it. Nobody has ever been protected, and I'm sure you'll do the same for your own members and leaders who are facing charges of corruption in one way or the others. So our own accountability is there for everybody to see. Thank you, ANC, for welcoming the MPAT. It is precisely for that reason that you want to improve the culture of service, the culture of accountability, that we have put these things there in the public domain. We don't have a private meeting with government departments. We assess them, we go to government, and then we put it on the website. All that information, you will find it there, because we do not hide anything. We want to improve service delivery for the people of South Africa. With those few remarks, thank you, House Chair, for offering us an opportunity to share this.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. That concludes the address. I shall now ask the Secretary to read the first order of the day.
Consideration of report of Select Committee on Finance, 2014 revised fiscal framework.
Chairperson of the Select Committee on Finance, it's your time.
Honorable House Chair, Honorable Minister Khadebe, the 2014 revised fiscal framework as part of the 2014 MTBBS was tabled in the National Assembly by the Minister of Finance on the 22nd of October 2014. The Financial and Fiscal Commission, the South African Reserve Bank, and the Parliamentary Budget Office made submissions at hearings on the MTBBS. I want to say at the start, Honourable House Chair, that we support the proposed fiscal package to reinforce fiscal sustainability. I'm just highlighting a few issues that came out in the MTBBS, looking at the economic outlook. Global economic growth will continue to be moderate and pick up in 2015. Major risks to the global economic outlook include geopolitical tensions, monetary policy normalization in the United States, deflation, low growth turning into stagnation in advanced economies like in France, as well as a decline in potential growth in emerging economies. Looking at Africa, economic activity in sub-Saharan Africa remains robust, with growth projected to average above 5% in the medium term. Coming to South Africa, the South African economy is growing at a moderate pace, but continues to perform below potential. The South African Reserve Bank, the Bureau for Economic Research, and National Treasury has revised South Africa's growth forecast down to 1.4% in 2014 from 3.6% in 2011. Honourable House Chair, this is the longest slowdown in the South African economy since 2011. The economy is not growing fast enough to meet all the challenges we face. All South Africans must work together to address these challenges, including all sectors, including the private sector. Economic growth is expected to rise gradually over the medium term, reaching 3% in 2017. Looking at the trade deficit deteriorated from 2.1% to 2.8% of GDP in the second quarter of 2014. The current account of deficit is estimated to increase 5.6% of GDP in 2014, declining to 5% in 2017. Savings, very important point. A low level of domestic savings and high investment requirements increase the economy's reliance on foreign capital flows. We have to create a culture of savings also when we address community meetings in our constituencies. Looking at the 2014 fiscal framework, the 2014 consolidated fiscal framework makes 1.2 trillion rand available for spending in 2015-2016, 1.3 trillion in 2016-17, and 1.4 trillion in 2017-18 financial years. Regarding revenue of 1.45 trillion in 25-16, 1.169 trillion in 2016-17, and 1.272 trillion in 26-17 financial years have been forecasted. Government's tax revenue collection is highly dependent on the developments in economic conditions, both at global and domestic level. Tax increases are expected to generate 44 billion over the next 3 years. Government's net debt as a share of GDP continues to grow. The fiscal package is expected to stabilize debt at 2.4 trillion in 2017-2018. Debt service cost for 2014-15 is expected to reach 114.5 billion, increasing to 149.7 billion in 2017-18, the fastest growing spending growth at 9.3%. Looking at job creation lags behind growth and contributes to the high levels of joblessness, measured at 25.5% and increases to 35% if discouraged job seekers are included. Inflation remained within the 3.6% target. Hence, over the past 4 years, rose to 6.4% in August 2014. CPI inflation is expected to average 6.2% to 6.3% in 2014 and to remain within the target band. Honourable Chairperson, what is remarkable? Everything is not gloomy. Since 1994, the South African economy grew by 3.29% per year. The average income of South Africans, which declined by 15% in the last decade of apartheid, the last 10 years, has increased by over 30% since 1994. That's a good story. The committee noted the following, Honourable House Chair. We appreciated the presentations made by the FFC, the Reserve Bank and the PBO, and noted that while a good overview of the MTBBS and a macroeconomic picture were provided, these presentations do not contain any specific proposals or offer any alternatives to the proposals in the MTBBS. Also noted most of the FFC's proposals to the National Treasury were accepted and that the FFC welcomes most aspects of the MTBBS. The committee believes that it is not sustainable for National Treasury to keep rescuing challenged SOEs, state-owned enterprises, who fail to improve their performance despite constant support. The committee accepts that there may be a need to sell non-strategic assets, but it is interested to know what criteria will be used to determine what a non-strategic asset are and on what terms they will be sold. Agrees that while there are significant global constraints hindering South Africa's economic growth, over which the country has limited control, there are also major domestic constraints that can and must be addressed, including badly managed labor disputes, energy and transport challenges, skill shortages, and some policy uncertainties. Note that the current account and fiscal deficits combined with electricity shortages and high electricity tariffs, low growth prospects are seen as key risks by investors. We welcome the government's cost containment proposals and stress the need to ensure that these contribute to the country's economic growth, job creation and development goals, and noted further that the FFC supported the National Treasury proposals. Support the National Treasury's commitment ensuring that fraud and corruption are more actively combated and fruitless and wasteful expenditure are more decisively reduced. Note that government's anti-corruption task team has been investigating 169 criminal cases involving 945 individuals. Coming to the recommendations, we recommended National Treasury to be clear about the criteria it used to define non-strategic assets in terms of any sale of these. The sale of non-strategic assets, however defined, could be contested and could take time. However, some SOEs need financial assistance more immediately. The 2015-16 budget will have to clearly set out how the National Treasury will realize assumptions of the MTBBS and mitigate the risk to implementing it. National Treasury need to be clear about how government is going to deal with the domestic constraints to growth, including badly managed labor disputes, electricity and transport challenges, skill shortages, and some policy uncertainties. National Treasury will also have to, through a variety of ways, assist provinces and municipalities to implement cost containment proposals. Also need to more actively monitor the outcomes of the Jobs Fund allocations, and the committee will engage with the National Treasury on this in the first quarter of 2015. While the committee recognizes the need for foreign direct investment, it believes that there is a need for greater focus on domestic investment, and the right balance needs to be struck between domestic and foreign investments. Also that the National Treasury be more clearly explain how government will more actively combat corruption. If government is more effective in reducing corruption, there will be significant savings, and the National Treasury will be in a better position to more carefully decide to tax businesses. 2015-16 budget needs to be more clearly aligned with the NDP and the medium-term strategic framework. In view of the lack of investor and public confidence in the prospects of economic growth, National Treasury needs to far more actively communicate its programs and activities through the public media and its own media and through other ways. Honourable House Chair, to better prepare to monitor and follow on the above recommendations, that's now us as committees, the committee further proposals. As raised in the budget report, the committee needs to engage with the Public Enterprises Portfolio Committee and Select Committee on the performance of SOEs and other related matters. The committee will request the Parliamentary Budget Office to undertake research on the financial aspects of SOEs and other related issues following consultations with these relevant committees. A research report should be presented to the committee in the first quarter of 2015. Honourable House Chair, Parliament needs to look into a new and more creative ways of encouraging civil society participation in the MTBBS public hearings in future. It's also our role to take this MTBBS to our constituencies and go and explain to them, as well as the national budget that will be tabled in February. Where does the money come from? And what is our responsibility as members of Parliament, as members in provincial legislators, but also as councillors, to explain to our people where do they fit in the national budget that's going to be tabled. Honourable House Chair, I move that the report be adopted by the House. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable De Beer. That concludes the debate. I shall now put the question. The question is that the report be agreed to. In accordance with Rule 7.1, I shall first allow provinces the opportunity to make their declarations of vote if they so wish. Okay, we shall now proceed to the voting on the question. Heads of delegation will vote by pressing in favor if they agree, against if they don't agree, or abstain button. I now call upon provinces. Eastern Cape?
Eastern Cape support the report.
Free State?
Say support, ma'am.
Gauteng?
In support.
KwaZulu-Natal?
KwaZulu-Natal, samukela isiphakamiso.
Limpopo? Mpumalanga?
We support.
Northern Cape?
We support.
Northwest? Thank you, Honourable Member. Western Cape?
We support.
Thank you. Have all the heads of the delegation voted? Now we close the voting. And all 9 provinces voted in favor. I therefore declare the report agreed to in terms of Section 65 of the Constitution. Honourable members, that concludes the debate and the business of the day. Members are requested to remain standing until the procession has left the House. The House is adjourned.